Chapter 21-28. Why? Do you want me to chase you out? Looking at the four of them standing in front of him motionless, Qin Feiyang said expressionlessly. Huh, the four of them laughed. Not only were they not afraid, they even sat down. Qin Feiyang's eyes turned cold. Did I ask you to sit? Senior brother Jiang, don't be angry, listen to us first. One of them laughed. Qin Feiyang said, we don't have anything to say. No. Senior brother Jiang works in the resource hall, don't you know the rules of the resource hall? The four of them were all smiling. What rules? Qin Feiyang frowned. Any disciple who enters the resource hall to exchange for soul stones, the staff of the resource hall are not allowed to make private transactions. In other words, this morning, you secretly asked us to make private transactions with you, which is already against the rules of the resource hall. And if we tell Hall Master Feng Yuan about this, what do you think the consequences will be? I'm afraid not only will we be punished, but we will also be chased out of the resource hall. The four of them laughed happily, as if they had Qin Feiyang under their control. Qin Feiyang was stunned. The resource hall did have such a rule. When he first entered the resource hall, Wang Yun first said this to him. However, he did not expect that the four of them would use this to threaten him. Senior brother Jiang, we're just looking for money. And we don't want much. For these soul stones, is it worth it to fall out with us? The four of them said one after another, their faces full of playfulness. Qin Feiyang glanced at the four of them and nodded with a smile, it's indeed not worth it. That's right. Harmony brings wealth, that's the right way. One of them laughed. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and smiled, that makes sense. Alright, I'll give you 4 million, but I want to take a look at the Dragon God flower. No problem. The four of them smiled proudly. One of them immediately took out a jade box, opened it, and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced at the jade box and saw that it was indeed the Dragon God's flower. Wait a moment, I'll give you the rest of the soul stones right away. Qin Feiyang smiled and touched the interspatial ring on his index finger. The four of them stared at Qin Feiyang's interspatial ring with greed in their eyes. There must be a lot of soul stones in that interspatial ring. What a pity. If we knew it would be so easy, we would have asked for more. Someone said telepathically. More? The other three stared blankly for a moment before their eyes lit up. It's not too late to raise the price. That's right. We have something on him, so aren't we the ones who have the final say? Alright, then we'll raise the price. The four of them immediately agreed. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, wait. What is it? Qin Feiyang was taken aback and looked at the four of them suspiciously. We've changed our minds again. Each of us wants 100 million soul stones. Yes. Not a word less. The four of them said, 100 million? Qin Feiyang was stunned. They were really 4 wolves that couldn't be fed. Then he smiled. The four of them also smiled. They thought that Qin Feiyang had agreed. They couldn't help but feel excited. 400 million soul stones, ordinary disciples like them didn't even dare to think about it. Okay. I'll satisfy your request. Qin Feiyang smiled. Thank you. The four of them laughed. But 400 million soul stones is not a small number. I don't have that many on me. I put the rest in the interspatial divine item. Why don't you come with me to get it? Qin Feiyang said. Interspatial divine item? The four of them were stunned. There's no need for that. The interspatial divine item is an independent space after all. If anything happens, then we won't be able to help. Jiang Haotian, don't play tricks. Just take the soul stones out of the interspatial divine item. The four of them sneered. They were also afraid that Qin Feiyang would kill them, so they didn't dare to go to the interspatial divine item. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I didn't expect the four of you to be so careful. We can't be careless. After all, you're Jiang Haotian. The four of them said. All right, I'll give you the soul stones now. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. But the next moment, a cold light suddenly flashed in his eyes. At the same time, he waved his big hand, and 4 streaks of blood streaked across the sky like lightning and entered the glabella of the 4 of them. The 4 of them screamed and died on the spot. Threatening me? Qin Feiyang took a step forward and looked coldly at the 4 of them who died with their eyes wide open, and said, You dare to threaten me? You guys are really tired of living. After saying that, he bent down and picked up the jade box containing the dragon god's flower, and took away the 4 universe rings. Although the 4 of them were dead, their screams could be heard. What's going on? Who's screaming? The disciples of the first sacred peak ran out one after another and looked at the cave where Qin Feiyang was. Because they all heard clearly that the screams came from the first cave. What happened? Suddenly, a figure broke through the air. It was Jin Yunchang. Although Madman was an inner sect elder, he basically didn't care about anything, so he was still the one in charge. Elder Jin, there were a few screams coming from the first cave. Someone said. What? Jin Yunchang's face changed, and he quickly flew to the door of the cave. As he knocked on the door, he shouted, Jiang Haotian, are you inside? Open the door. So fast? Inside the cave. Qin Feiyang looked at the stone door and couldn't help but frown. There was still some distance between the 10 sacred peaks and the inner sect's deacon hall. Moreover, although the screams of the 4 people were heard, the stone door of the cave also had a certain degree of soundproofing. Logically speaking, Jin Yunchang shouldn't have heard it. But now, Jin Yunchang actually rushed over so quickly, as if it was premeditated. Jin Yunchang roared, Jiang Haotian, if you don't open the door, I will break it by force. Could it be that Jiang Haotian is not in the cave now? He is. In the evening, I saw him come back with my own eyes. I think something shady must have happened in the cave, so he didn't dare to open the door. Everyone whispered. Boom. But at this moment, the stone door slowly opened. Qin Feiyang stood behind the stone door, full of murderous intent. Why is there such a strong murderous intent? Everyone was surprised. Jin Yunchang glanced at Qin Feiyang and rushed into the cave. Qin Feiyang also ignored Jin Yunchang. Bastard! Soon, Jin Yunchang's angry roar sounded in the cave, followed by Jin Yunchang walking out gloomily with 4 corpses. What? 4 people died? What the hell is going on? Everyone was bewildered. Jin Yunchang walked out of the cave, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said in a deep voice, Jiang Haotian, please give me an explanation. Qin Feiyang said, previously, they hid in the cave and wanted to plot against me, but I discovered them, so I killed them. Plot against him? Is that so? Everyone muttered. Since it was a plot, then their deaths are not to be regretted. Drag them away and bury them. At this time, Madman flew over and looked at Jin Yunchang. Elder, this is only Jiang Haotian's side of the story. No one knows what happened before, how can you be so rash? Jin Yunchang looked at Madman and said. Madman said, then tell me, what is going on? Jin Yunchang glanced at Qin Feiyang and said, we can't rule out the possibility that Jiang Haotian killed them on purpose. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows, Elder Jin, do you want me to die that much? What a joke. I'm just stating facts. You said they ambushed you, then why don't you take out the evidence? Jin Yunchang said angrily. Qin Feiyang said, they ambushed me, how would I have the time to find evidence? Then what you said might not be true. Jin Yunchang sneered and looked at Madman. Elder, this matter must be investigated thoroughly. Perhaps Jiang Haotian is really innocent, but without evidence, we can't be so arbitrary. Alright, I'll leave it to you to investigate. After Madman finished speaking, he turned around and prepared to return home. Madman, please wait a moment. But suddenly, a faint laugh sounded. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man appear out of thin air in the void above. This person held a folding fan in his hand and wore a white robe. His long hair draped over his shoulders and he exuded a scholarly aura. It's you? Madman turned around and frowned. Yes, it's me. The young man in white nodded. This person looks so familiar, I seem to have seen him somewhere before. Everyone looked at the young man in white suspiciously. Qin Feiyang looked at the young man in white with a trace of doubt in his eyes. This person's voice sounded familiar. Right. I remember now. He's Yu Zijia. The second on the heaven roll, the number 1 alchemist, and the disciple of the second elder. Someone exclaimed in shock. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. So it's him. Qin Feiyang muttered. No wonder he felt that this person's voice sounded familiar. Yu Zijia glanced at Qin Feiyang and smiled at Madman. Madman, there is indeed a mystery behind this matter. Madman was taken aback and crossed his arms in front of his chest. Then why don't you tell me? Yu Zijia smiled. If I say it, you can't be biased. After all, you are now an inner elder. Of course. As long as you can produce evidence, I will deal with it impartially. Madman said. I'm waiting for you to say this. Yu Zijia smiled and glanced at the disciples around, saying, actually, Jiang Haotian killed them to silence them. What? Everyone was surprised. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank slightly. This person was so calm, could it be that he really had evidence? Let me show everyone a video. Yu Zijia took out the image crystal and with a wave of his hand, a video slowly unfolded in the night sky. What? Qin Feiyang was shocked. This video was actually the scene when he was talking with the 4 people in the cave. In other words, when the 4 people came to find him, Yu Zijia also sneaked in. Understood. Qin Feiyang muttered. No wonder the 4 people were so bold and dared to threaten him. It turned out that they had Yu Zijia backing them from behind. Moreover, Jin Yunchang was definitely an accomplice of these people. In other words, this was a killing trap set up by Yu Zijia and Jin Yunchang. Chapter 21-29. When the video ended, the crowd was in an uproar. He really killed people to silence them. As a member of the resource hall, he actually used his authority to make private transactions with others. This is already against the rules. When I heard that he let Feng Wenhai go and gave 40 million soul stones to the family of the deceased outside the city this morning, I thought that he was really a good person. But I didn't expect that all of this was just an act. He really hid his strength well. At this moment, looking at Qin Feiyang, everyone's eyes were filled with disgust. Seeing this scene, Madman couldn't help but frown. Yu Zijia, on the other hand, was full of smiles. He put away the video crystal and looked at Madman. Jiang Haotian used his authority to fill his pockets and even killed the innocent. May I ask how to deal with such a mistake? Kid, what are you doing? Even if you made private transactions with them and violated the rules of the resource hall, Feng Yuan wouldn't dare to do anything to you after learning about it. At most, he would only give you a small punishment. But why did you kill them? What do you want me to do now? Madman thought to himself, extremely angry. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice, you also saw it. It was them who kept pushing their luck. If it were you, would you tolerate it? Madman was slightly stunned and thought to himself, indeed, I can't tolerate it. That's right. I don't regret killing these 4 people. But this Uzijia actually did such a thing behind my back. I can't tolerate it. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. Madman asked suspiciously, but then again, why did this Uzijia harm you? How would I know? Qin Feiyang couldn't figure it out either. He didn't seem to have any grudges with this Uzijia. Last time at the auction house, when he bid for the 4 symbols infinite divine pill, it was also Madman who humiliated him. The second 4 symbols infinite divine pill was also played by Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi. Logically speaking, even if Uzijia was angry and wanted to find trouble, he should find trouble with Madman and Mu Tianyang. But why was he targeting him now? Madman, you haven't punished him yet. Don't tell me you want to bend the law and protect him. Uzijia said mockingly as he looked at Madman. What a joke. I am a selfless man. Why would I cover up for others? Jin Yunchang, send him to the law enforcement hall immediately and hand him over to Shengguan Fenglan for her to decide. Madman shouted. Yes. Jin Yunchang was overjoyed. He turned to Qin Feiyang and sneered, let's go. Qin Feiyang glanced at Uzijia, then looked at Jin Yunchang and said, lead the way. You can't walk by yourself? Jin Yunchang shouted as he kicked Qin Feiyang's body. Who did he think he was, asking him to lead the way? Qin Feiyang clenched his fists and stared at Jin Yunchang. I don't know where the law enforcement hall is. Are you kidding me? You've been in 9 Heavens Palace for so long, but you don't even know where the enforcement hall is? Jin Yunchang was taken aback and said angrily. Qin Feiyang said, with just one sentence, you feel like I'm playing with you. How inferior are you usually? Jin Yunchang was furious. He raised his arm and was about to slap Qin Feiyang's face. Madman's face darkened, and said, Jin Yunchang, it's not your turn to show off. Jin Yunchang's body stiffened. He glanced at Madman, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, follow me. With that, he flew towards the depths of 9 Heavens Palace. I, Jiang Haotian, rarely take the initiative to cause trouble, but I'm never afraid of trouble. This time, I admit defeat, but there's still a long way to go. Let's wait and see. Qin Feiyang glanced at Uzijia indifferently, then followed Jin Yunchang and left. There's still a long way to go, the corner of Uzijia's mouth lifted. Looking at Qin Feiyang's back, he pursed his lips with a thick sense of ridicule. Uzijia. Suddenly, Madman's voice sounded. Uzijia was taken aback. He turned to look at Madman and asked, what's the matter? Madman said, I heard that 2 years ago, you snatched a few medicinal herbs from an outer disciple? 2 years ago? Snatched a few medicinal herbs? Uzijia was stunned. There was such a thing? As a heavenless disciple, you actually snatched medicinal herbs from an outer disciple. You really brought shame to our 9 Heavens Palace. Madman sneered, then turned and left. Uzijia was a little dumbfounded. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly shouted, when did I do such a thing? Explain it to me clearly. You know very well. Madman said without turning his head. It can't be. This Uzijia actually snatched medicinal herbs from an outer disciple? It seems that it's not a good thing. The surrounding people whispered in each other's ears. Don't listen to Madman's nonsense. This is purely false. He saw that I exposed Jiang Haotian's true face, so he made up this lie to take revenge on me. Everyone, you must not be deceived by him. Uzijia hurriedly explained. On Qin Feiyang's side. Along the way, he lowered his head and didn't say a word. Unknowingly, an ancient hall appeared in front of them. The hall was completely black, sitting on top of a giant mountain that was thousands of feet high. It was like a giant beast, emitting an aura that made people tremble. In front of the hall, there was a square. In the corner of the square, there was a tall stone tablet. The 3 words were like iron hooks and silver strokes, vigorous and powerful. Law Enforcement Hall. That's right. This was the law enforcement hall that made countless disciples tremble in fear. On both sides of the door, 2 men in black held long spears and stood straight. Their eyes were extremely sharp. Their aura was also unfathomable. "We're here," Jin Yunchang said. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the law enforcement hall. An aura that made people in awe suddenly rushed towards them. It was very quiet here. But in this quiet atmosphere, it seemed to be filled with an invisible killing intent. One could even vaguely smell a faint smell of blood. The 2 landed on the square one after another and walked to the door. "What's the matter?" The 2 black-clothed men looked at Jin Yunchang expressionlessly and asked. "This Jiang Haotian used his power to fill his pockets and even killed 4 of our disciples. So I specially brought him here to ask Hall Master Shengguan to make a decision." Jin Yunchang cupped his hands and said, The 2 black-clothed men looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Whether it was in the 9 Heavens Palace or outside, this boy was quite well received. How could he do such a thing? Jin Yunchang said, "May I ask if Hall Master Shengguan is here?" "No." "Wait a moment, I'll immediately report to Hall Master," one of the black-clothed men said and took out an image crystal. Buzz. Not long after, Shengguan Fenglan's shadow appeared. There was a young man beside her. It was Long Tianyu. "What's the matter?" Shengguan Fenglan looked at the black-clothed man and asked indifferently. It's about Jiang Haotian." "Hall Master, please come over immediately," the black-clothed man said. "Jiang Haotian?" Shengguan Fenglan was stunned and said, "Okay, I'll be right there." After saying that, the shadow disappeared into thin air. A moment later, swish! Shengguan Fenglan finally arrived in the sky above the square. "Greetings, Hall Master." Jin Yunchang, Qin Feiyang, and the 2 black-clothed men bowed one after another. Shengguan Fenglan glanced at Qin Feiyang, landed in front of the door, and then entered the main hall, saying, "Come in." Qin Feiyang and Jin Yunchang followed in. The layout of the main hall was very simple. There was only 1 chair in the entire main hall. It was placed right at the top, and it seemed extremely empty. However, the inside of the hall was a little dim, giving people a sense of oppression from the soul. Shengguan Fenglan walked straight to the front of the chair, then turned around and sat on it. She looked at Jin Yunchang and said, "Speak." Jin Yunchang immediately recounted what had happened in detail. Shengguan Fenglan heard this and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Is it true?" Qin Feiyang nodded. "You're getting bolder and bolder," Shengguan Fenglan suddenly said angrily. Qin Feiyang said, "I know I was wrong, and I'm willing to be punished." Jin Yunchang bowed and said, "Hall Master, this matter concerns 4 lives. Please punish Jiang Haotian severely. Those who have made mistakes should be punished severely. I have my own decision. You can leave." Shengguan Fenglan waved her hand. "Yes." Jin Yunchang responded respectfully, then glanced coldly at Qin Feiyang, turned around, and left quickly. After Jin Yunchang left, Shengguan Fenglan said angrily, "How can you be so careless? You actually let Uzijia have something on you? I didn't expect that Uzijia would work with Jin Yunchang to deal with me." Qin Feiyang said helplessly. Shengguan Fenglan was stunned and asked, "Jin Yunchang is also involved?" Although Jin Yunchang didn't say it explicitly, he rushed over as soon as I killed those people. This matter obviously has something to do with him. Qin Feiyang said. Then why did Yu Zijie want to deal with you? Did you offend him? Shangguan Fenglan was suspicious. This is also the question I can't figure out. I have never been on bad terms with him. I didn't even know there was such a person before. Qin Feiyang frowned. That's not right. I heard from my sister that when you were bidding for the 4 symbols infinite divine pill in the treasure pavilion, you seemed to have humiliated him? Shangguan Fenglan said. That's true. But the one who humiliated him was Madman. Later on, I went to the far west with Madman. It was also Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi who were playing with him. I didn't say anything at all. Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan pondered for a moment and said, it seems that this matter needs to be investigated properly. How about this, you go to the prison first. Prison? Qin Feiyang was stunned. My 9 Heavens Palace has a prison, it's right under the enforcement hall. It's specifically used to punish disciples who have made mistakes. Shangguan Fenglan nodded. Qin Feiyang suddenly said with dissatisfaction, although I killed someone, but in the end, it was them who were aggressive. But before Qin Feiyang finished speaking, Shangguan Fenglan said, but you violated the rules of the resource hall. This is an indisputable fact. If I don't punish you now, Feng Yuan will definitely use this matter to make a big fuss. Moreover, the disciples under him will not be convinced. Qin Feiyang still had a look of dissatisfaction. Don't worry. This Highness will arrange it. At most, you will stay in the prison for a while. It won't be a big deal. Shangguan Fenglan said. All right then. Qin Feiyang said helplessly. By the way, you want the dragon god's flower. Do you want to study some kind of pill? Shangguan Fenglan asked. Chapter 2130. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. What kind of elixir? Shangguan Fenglan was curious. It's a secret for now. Qin Feiyang smiled mysteriously. Brat. Shangguan Fenglan rolled her eyes at Qin Feiyang and shouted, Men. A man in black outside immediately ran in. Shangguan Fenglan said, Take Jiang Haotian to the prison, but remember, it's just an ordinary prison. Yes. The man in black respectfully responded. Looking at Qin Feiyang, he politely stretched out his hand and said, Please. Qin Feiyang nodded, glanced at Shangguan Fenglan, then turned and walked out of the hall. The man in black also followed him out. Yu Zijie, Jin Yunchang, how did 2 completely unrelated people end up together? Shangguan Fenglan lowered her head, her brows tightly knitted together. Outside the hall. Qin Feiyang followed behind the man in black, passing through the square and coming to the cliff on the east side. There was a mountain road at the edge of the cliff, winding down to the mountainside. The man in black walked along the mountain road and said with a smile, Jiang Haotian, Lord Temple Master takes good care of you. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was curious. You also heard Lord Temple Master say that it's just an ordinary prison. Do you know what this means? It means that Lord Temple Master has no intention of blaming you at all. You may not know the situation in our prison. Let me put it this way. Anyone who enters our law enforcement hall's prison basically never returns. The man in black smiled. So serious? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes. This is the reason why the disciples of 9 Heavens Palace are so afraid of our enforcement hall. We have always been cruel to those who have made mistakes. In short, once in prison, they will be tortured and abused. Even if we accidentally kill them, the higher-ups won't blame us. The man in black smiled. Qin Feiyang was secretly shocked and said, I didn't expect the power of the law enforcement hall to be so great. The law enforcement hall is the dagger of 9 Heavens Palace. We are law enforcers, also known as executioners. The black-clothed man said. Executioner, actually, no matter what, there are two sides to everything. Although you are cruel, it is because of you that Nine Heavens Palace is so peaceful. Qin Feiyang smiled. Ugh. The man in black turned his head and looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. What is it? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. I was a little surprised. After being in the law enforcement hall for so many years, this is the first time I've heard someone praise us, the law enforcement hall. The man in black shook his head and smiled. This is the truth. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. The contribution you enforcers have made to the Nine Heavens Palace is incomparable. Qin Feiyang said. Huh. The black-clothed man smiled in relief and said, Now I finally understand why Lord Hall Master is taking such good care of you. You're a talent. You flatter me. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Suddenly, as if thinking of something, he asked calmly, Elder Yin Hui, is she in the law enforcement hall now? The black-clothed man said, Elder Yin has been in seclusion these years. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and nodded thoughtfully. We're here. After a while. The black-clothed man smiled. Qin Feiyang looked up and saw that they were already halfway up the mountain. In front of them, there was a dark stone door, as if it was built with divine iron, exuding a cold aura. The stone door was closed. Next to it, there was an old man in black sitting cross-legged. The old man had his eyes closed, and there was a kind of indifference in his expression that made people not dare to approach him. Greetings to Elder Yun. The black-clothed man bowed. The old man opened his eyes, and two cold light burst out. Qin Feiyang also hurriedly bowed his head. The moment the old man opened his eyes, he felt as if he was being stared at by a poisonous snake, and a sense of fear uncontrollably emerged in his heart. This old man must be an extremely terrifying existence, and his methods were very bloody. Under the orders of the temple master, I brought Jiang Haotian to the prison. But the temple master said that it's just an ordinary prison. The black-clothed man said respectfully. The old man said coldly, Got it, you can go back. Yes. The black-clothed man nodded in response, then turned around and said, Jiang Haotian, this old man has a very high status in our Nine Heavens Palace, and even the temple master has to be polite to him. Don't offend him. Understood. Qin Feiyang secretly said. In addition, you have to be careful, because Elder Yun is Elder Yin's master. After the black-clothed man finished speaking, he left without looking back. Yin Hui's master. Qin Feiyang was shocked. It was really a small world. Feng Wenhai and Yin Hui were husband and wife. Then this Elder Yun was very likely to make a move on him for Yin Hui. Then wouldn't he be a turtle in a jar in the prison? Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. One had to know. If Elder Yun really wanted to harm him, then in the prison, he wouldn't be able to call for help. That wasn't right. If Elder Yun really wanted to harm him, then he believed that Shengguan Fenglan would definitely not let him come to the prison. In other words, Shengguan Fenglan trusted this old man. So it seemed that this Elder Yun should be an upright person, and would not deliberately make things difficult for him for Yin Hui. However, one had to be wary of others. It was better to be careful in the future. Boom! Just as Qin Feiyang was deep in thought, the prison's stone door slowly opened. Elder Yun said expressionlessly, After you go in, go directly to the third row, the second cell. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and strode towards the stone door. Jiang Haotian, although Shengguan Fenglan said that it's just an ordinary prison, don't think that you have the right to be arrogant. If you dare to mess around in the prison, this old man will directly kill you. Elder Yun suddenly spoke again. Qin Feiyang's body stiffened, took a deep breath, and nodded, understood. With that, he entered the prison without looking back. Boom! The stone door also closed. Qin Feiyang stood in place, scanning the front. In front of him, there were a total of 5 corridors. Every 10 meters on the wall, there was an oil lamp hanging, flickering with faint candlelight, making this place extremely dark. On both sides of the corridor, there were iron doors. On each iron door, there was a number, and there was a small window more than half a meter wide. However, the small windows were also blocked by iron pillars as thick as an arm. One could only see the outside and could not climb out. Qin Feiyang walked into the 3rd corridor and then stopped in front of the 2nd iron door. This was his cell. Suddenly. A shrill scream came from the end of the corridor. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked up. At the end of the corridor, there was an iron door, and it was completely closed, and the situation inside could not be seen. That miserable shriek came from behind the iron gate. Could that be the interrogation room? Qin Feiyang muttered. Crack! Suddenly, the iron door opened. 2 bare-chested brawny men in large underpants dragged a young man dripping with blood as they walked out. Qin Feiyang looked at the young man, and his pupils shrank. He was almost unrecognizable, like a dead dog, moaning weakly. At the same time, when the 2 brawny men saw Qin Feiyang, they were slightly stunned. But then, a cruel smile crept up on their faces. Here comes another one. Boy, what's your name? What did you do to get in here? The 2 brawny men threw the young man into a cell like garbage, closed the iron door with a bang, and then walked toward Qin Feiyang step by step. That look, as if staring at prey, was full of a murderous aura. Jiang Haotian. Murder. Qin Feiyang said. Jiang Haotian? The 2 of them were slightly stunned, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said, So you are Jiang Haotian. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, pushed open the iron door, and walked in. Wait. Did we let you in? The 2 of them pursed their lips into a sneer. What's the matter? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Don't you know the rules here? Anyone who comes here has to be treated well first, just like the person you just saw. Come on. The 2 of them walked to the iron door at the end and looked at Qin Feiyang with sneers. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang frowned. What do you think? Do you still remember Elder Feng Wenhai? He was a little bit hurt by you. The 2 of them were playing. Qin Feiyang's heart sank, and said, You are Feng Wenhai's men? Don't talk nonsense. We just don't like what you did to Elder Feng, so we want you to suffer. Of course, in this prison, you don't have the right to choose. Hurry up, don't make us do it ourselves. The 2 of them said with a smile. Qin Feiyang laughed and said, Sorry, I'm just an ordinary prisoner. After saying that, he turned around and entered the cell. The cell was about 5 or 6 meters, and there was nothing except a stone bed. No. There was blood. Whether it was the ground, the wall, or the stone bed, there were dried blood stains. Obviously. This was the blood of the people who used to be imprisoned here after being tortured and abused. Ordinary prisoner? Outside. The 2 strong men were a little stunned. But the next moment, their faces were full of anger. The 2 of them rushed into the cell angrily and pressed Qin Feiyang on the ground. What are you doing? Qin Feiyang said angrily. What are we doing? Do you think ordinary imprisonment can prevent you from being tortured and interrogated? Naive. Here, we are the heavens. We will do whatever we say. The 2 of them looked at Qin Feiyang condescendingly, their faces full of sneers. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's eyes were extremely gloomy, and said, This is Shengguan Fenglan's order, you dare to disobey her decree? Of course, we dare not disobey the decree of Lord Palace Lord. But Lord Palace Lord doesn't seem to know about this. So even if we kill you, we can casually find an excuse and say that you asked for it. The two of them laughed. Chapter 21-31. Qin Feiyang's face was as gloomy as water. Obviously. These two brawny men were Feng Wenhai's men. Now they wanted to take this opportunity to avenge Feng Wenhai, which was to get rid of him. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "What benefits did Feng Wenhai give you to make you work so hard for him? I told you, this has nothing to do with Elder Feng, we just don't like you. Don't be so naive to think that Shengguan Fenglan's words can keep you safe. Let me tell you, as long as the two of us are here, you can forget about leaving the prison alive." The two of them grabbed Qin Feiyang and dragged him outside. Boom! But at this moment, the stone door of the prison opened. The two brawny men were shocked and hurriedly put down Qin Feiyang. Duh. Accompanied by steady footsteps, an old man appeared in front of the three of them. Elder Yun. The two brawny men hurriedly bowed. Elder Yun glanced at Qin Feiyang, then looked at the two brawny men and said, "What you said before, are you serious?" The two of them looked rather flustered. Qin Feiyang got up from the ground. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he just looked at Elder Yun silently. He wanted to see if Elder Yun was a selfless old man. Elder Yun shouted, "This old man is asking you, are you serious?" Elder Yun. The two of them trembled and knelt on the ground. Elder Yun, we also want to avenge Elder Feng. Yes. Elder Feng was driven out of Nine Heavens Palace by this kid, we old subordinates have always been brooding about it. Elder Feng is our benefactor, we really can't stand this little bastard treating Elder Feng like this. Elder Yun, you are Elder Yin's master. Elder Feng has always treated you with the utmost respect. Hearing this, Elder Yun's eyes suddenly burst out with a cold light, and he shouted, "Shut up." The two of them trembled and did not dare to continue. Feng Wenhai was expelled from Nine Heaven Palace because he made a mistake. He deserved to be punished. As for you all, you actually dared to disregard the orders of the Hall Master and use your position to avenge private wrongs. Do you know what sort of crime this is? Old Yun said coldly. Elder Yun, the two of them were flustered. Elder Yun said, "This old man doesn't want to fight. Kill yourself. Commit suicide." The two of them quickly changed their expressions and shouted, "Elder Yun, we know our mistake. Please, let us go. We won't dare to do it again." Elder Yun didn't say a word. He just looked at the two of them. The two of them knelt on the ground and kowtowed non-stop. Their foreheads were bruised and blood flowed all over the ground. "It seems like you haven't fought for a long time. Even my words have no effect." Elder Yun's eyes turned cold. A wave of God power rolled out like a tidal wave and drowned the two of them. Accompanied by two painful screams, the two died on the spot. Not even their bones remained. Qin Feiyang's pupils contracted. This old man's methods were indeed bloody. After killing the two of them, Elder Yun glanced at Qin Feiyang, withdrew his god power, and turned to leave the prison. The stone door also closed. Qin Feiyang looked at the bloodstains on the ground and couldn't help but let out a breath. It seemed that this old man was indeed very upright, but he wasn't easy to get along with. He retracted his gaze and turned to enter the cell. After looking around, he directly entered the castle and went into seclusion to cultivate. He wasn't worried about this matter at all. Because Great Elder and Shengguan Fenglan wouldn't let him die. Even if Great Elder wanted him to die, he still had a life-saving trump card in his hand. And this trump card was the cause of death of Great Elder's son. The next day, late at night. St. Peak, Cave Number 4. Mu Tianyang, Hua Yi, and Madman sat opposite each other. But the three of them didn't speak. The living room was dead silent. After a while, Hua Yi raised his head and looked at Madman and Mu Tianyang. He frowned and said, "Senior brother Madman, brother Mu, say something." "Say what?" He asked for it. Madman said indifferently. "You can't say it like that. Brother Jiang was also schemed against by Wuxia. Indeed, brother Jiang is also at fault, but we can't just watch him die," Hua Yi said. Mu Tianyang raised his head and looked at Hua Yi. "Have you asked Shengwan Fenglan how she dealt with him?" "I've already asked. She said that brother Jiang is now locked in the prison," Hua Yi said. "Prison? What is this Shengwan Fenglan doing? Doesn't she know that the prison of the law enforcement hall is a netherworld?" Madman frowned. "I also asked, she said that it's just an ordinary prison. But I heard that the person guarding the prison is Yin Hui's master, called Elder Yun. He's very strong," Hua Yi said in a deep voice. "What?" Mu Tianyang suddenly stood up and said in surprise, "Yin Hui's master?" "Yes. I heard that this person has a very high status in Nine Heavens Palace. Even Shengwan Fenglan has to respect him. This is the problem I'm worried about. If Elder Yun uses his position to avenge a private grudge, then even with Shengwan Fenglan's protection, his life will be hard to protect." Hua Yi sighed. Mu Tianyang said in a deep voice, "It seems that we really can't be careless about this matter. Actually, there's no need to worry. This old man also knows this old man. Although he is Yin Hui's master, he has an upright character and won't do anything to Jiang Haotian. The most important thing now is to investigate Wuxia. This trash, this old man has long disliked him. If it wasn't for the second elder backing him up, who knows how many times he would have died." Madman snorted coldly. "What does this Wuxia mean? Could it be that he holds a grudge because of that small matter at the auction house?" Hua Yi raised his eyebrows. Madman said, "This old man has thought about it carefully. His target should be this old man." "You?" Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang looked at each other. In the past, he was often bullied by this old man and has long held a grudge against this old man. It's just that his strength is too weak and he doesn't dare to openly oppose this old man, so he took a step back and made a move on Jiang Haotian. Actually, this old man is also to blame. During this period of time, I have been too close to Jiang Haotian, making everyone think that Jiang Haotian is this old man's man." Madman sighed. "If that's the case, then this account really needs to be settled with him." Hua Yi's eyes flashed with a cold light. "You guys hold back first, this old man will arrange it." Damn it, to dare bully this old man, he is really courting death. After Madman finished speaking, he was about to get up. But at this moment, with a bang, something appeared out of thin air and landed in front of the three of them. Madman and the other two were startled and quickly looked down. Their faces suddenly changed. The thing that suddenly appeared was actually a corpse. And it was a corpse that was bleeding. "Who?" Madman roared and released his divine sense, enveloping the cave. But he couldn't find anything in the cave. Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi stepped forward and turned the corpse over. When they saw the face of the corpse, they immediately froze on the ground. Cheng Li. How could it be him? Madman was also dumbfounded. That's right. This corpse was the outer court elder, Cheng Li. He just died not long ago, but why would he appear in my cave? Senior brother Madman, did you find anything like a spatial divine object? Hua Yi looked at Madman and asked. No. But someone must have deliberately sent it here. But what is this person's purpose? Madman frowned. Boom. But at this moment, The cave's stone door was forcefully broken open. Madman and the other two looked over and saw a familiar figure standing at the door. Jin Yunchang. Madman's eyes darkened. Chengli. You guys actually joined hands to kill Elder Cheng? Jin Yunchang looked at the dead Chengli lying on the ground and his eyes suddenly widened as he roared, Come quickly, madman, Hui, Mu Tianyang, kill Elder Cheng. His voice was like a bell, spreading in all directions. What? Madman and the others killed Elder Cheng? The disciples of the 10 sacred peaks immediately ran out of the cave and flew towards the 4th cave. They really killed him. Aren't they too bold? Chengli is an outer court elder. Even if he is madman, he doesn't have the authority. The place suddenly became noisy. Madman and the other two looked at the disciples outside, then looked at Jin Yunchang, then lowered their heads to look at Chengli. They immediately understood. This was yet another meticulously planned murder plot. And Jin Yunchang was one of them. Jin Yunchang, you dare to frame me. Madman's body suddenly emitted a monstrous killing intent as he rushed in front of Jin Yunchang and grabbed his neck. His eyes were cold and bone-chilling. Madman, don't talk nonsense. Who dares to kill Elder Cheng and then frame you? If you are a man, you must dare to take responsibility for your actions. Jin Yunchang roared, his face pale. You still dare to deny it, you are courting death. Madman's killing intent rose. But suddenly, a cold shout sounded. Madman, stop. Following closely, Shengguan Fenglan descended from the sky. Jin Yunchang hurriedly said, Hall Master Shengguan, quickly save me. This madman is completely crazy. Not only did he kill Elder Cheng, he also wants to kill me. You still dare to talk nonsense. Madman was furious. Shengguan Fenglan shouted, let him go. Madman raised his head and stared at Shengguan Fenglan, his eyes flashing with an astonishing cold light, but under Shengguan Fenglan's majesty, he finally let go of Jin Yunchang. Jin Yunchang hurriedly ran behind Shengguan Fenglan and said, Hall Master, Cheng Li's corpse is inside the cave. Shengguan Fenglan landed at the entrance of the cave and looked at Cheng Li's corpse. She turned to look at Madman and sighed, Madman, I'm afraid even the great elder won't be able to save you this time. We didn't kill Cheng Li, someone sent his corpse here before. Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang hurriedly said. Madman did not speak and kept staring at Jin Yunchang. That cold gaze made Jin Yunchang unable to help but feel fear. Sent here? Shengguan Fenglan frowned. We swear that we definitely didn't kill Cheng Li, you should also understand Madman. Although Madman is usually lawless, it is only limited to the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace. He doesn't dare to act recklessly against people of the elder level. Hua Yi said solemnly. Shengguan Fenglan's eyes flashed slightly, looking at Madman and Mu Tianyang, she said, follow me to the law enforcement hall. Jin Yunchang, find a place and bury Cheng Li. Yes. Jin Yunchang respectfully responded. Chapter 2132. After Jin Yunchang left with Cheng Li's corpse, Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang looked at each other and couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Mu Tianyang stepped forward and patted Madman's shoulder. I know you're angry now, but things have already come to this. No matter what we say, no one will believe us. Let's go to the law enforcement hall first. I believe that the first elder and Shengguan Fenglan will investigate the truth and clear our names. Madman retracted his gaze and glanced at Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi. He looked at Shengguan Fenglan and said, let's go. Shengguan Fenglan soared into the air. Madman and the other two followed behind Shengguan Fenglan. But at this moment, a white-clothed youth holding a folding fan appeared behind the crowd on the left. Yu Zijia. Madman's eyes were sharp and he immediately noticed the white-clothed youth. His face suddenly turned cold. He's also here? Could this matter be related to him? Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi were surprised. Wuxia looked at the three from afar with a bright smile on his face. Look at how happy he is. It's obvious that he's the one who brought Cheng Li's corpse here. Madman transmitted. This person's goal is indeed you. Hua Yi, Jiang Haotian, and I were all implicated by you. Mu Tianyang sighed inwardly. What's the use of saying this now? Madman stared at Mu Tianyang and then looked at Wuxia. His lips didn't move as he silently said, "Kid, you're dead." "I'll wait." Wuxia also moved his mouth and silently smiled. I really didn't expect Madman and the others to be so daring. Yeah. First, Jiang Haotian used his power for personal gain and killed someone to silence them. Now, the three of them are colluding to kill Elder Cheng Li. Is there really no one who can control them? Wrong. This time is different from the past. In the past, Madman did whatever he wanted and the people he killed were mostly disciples. Therefore, all the big shots turned a blind eye to it. However, this time around, he killed an elder. Although Cheng Li's position in Nine Heavens Palace isn't high, not even comparable to the heaven-ranking disciples, he is still an elder. This matter definitely won't end well. Even if he's a madman, I'm afraid he won't be able to escape safely this time. This is also a good thing. Indeed. Now that the madman is gone, we can relax. It's best to lock him up in prison and never let him out again. People were discussing in low voices, and there was a faint smile on their faces. An hour later. Prison. The three young men walked into the prison angrily. I've already said that we were framed. Why are they still locked up in prison? One of them said angrily. This person was dressed in purple, with long hair and an extraordinary temperament. Just bear with it. Lan also knows that we were framed, but without evidence, what can she do? Moreover, Lan has already taken good care of us. Just like Jiang Haotian, we're all just ordinary prisoners. Speaking of which cell is Jiang Haotian locked in? He must be very surprised to see us come in. Brother Jiang Haotian, do you hear my voice? Respond if you hear me. A fiery-haired young man shouted. He was also wearing a fiery red robe, and his entire person looked like a ball of flame. That's right. These three people were the madman, Mu Tianyang, and Hua Yi. Inside the ancient castle. Qin Feiyang, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. Why did he seem to hear Hua Yi's voice? Brother Jiang, we're here to see you. Hua Yi's voice sounded again. It's really him. Qin Feiyang was startled and quickly left the ancient castle. He appeared in the prison and said loudly, I'm here. Duh. Accompanied by a burst of hurried footsteps, three figures quickly appeared outside the iron gate. Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them and said with a smile, You missed me so soon? Yes. A day without seeing you feels like 3 autumns. Hua Yi chuckled. Qin Feiyang was quite moved. Bang! The madman raised his foot and kicked the iron gate open. Then, he looked around the prison and frowned, this place is also for people to stay? It can't be helped. It's a prison after all. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Hua Yi said, when you came in, did anyone make things difficult for you? Yes, there was, Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a frown, You're really here to see me? Hua Yi nodded and said, Of course, why else do you think we're here? Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Don't listen to his nonsense, we were also imprisoned by Shengguan Fenglan. What? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Hua Yi said with dissatisfaction, Brother Mu, why are you so straightforward? I want to continue teasing him. Is this the time to joke? Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes. Wait. What the hell is going on? Senior brother madman, is what Mu Tianyang said true? Qin Feiyang was surprised. The madman nodded. This, Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why were these three people also locked up? Who was the one who kicked the door just now? Suddenly, accompanied by a cold shout, 5 black-clothed men walked over boldly and decisively. The 5 of them had bloodstains on their bodies and looked fierce. Who are they? Mu Tianyang was suspicious. They are the law enforcers in the prison. They are specifically responsible for interrogating and torturing prisoners like us. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. Mu Tianyang said, we are just ordinary prisoners, they shouldn't dare, right? Not necessarily. When I came in, there were 2 law enforcers who wanted to torture me. But I'm afraid they won't this time. After all, senior brother madman is here. Qin Feiyang glanced at the madman with a smile on his face. What are you doing? Who gave you the guts to kick the door? The 5 men walked over and looked at Qin Feiyang's group of 4 angrily. Qin Feiyang's group didn't say a word. The madman was still looking around the cell. Because of this, his back was facing the 5 of them. One of the burly men shouted, Jiang Haotian, I'm asking you a question. You ask and we have to answer. You have such a big face? The madman said indifferently. Presumptuous. Do you know where this is? How dare you be so arrogant? The 5 of them were furious. Then do you know who I am? The madman slowly turned around and looked at the 5 of them with a gloomy face. Madman. The 5 of them stared at him. Why did this devil incarnate come to the prison? The madman crossed his arms and said coldly, I am the one who kicked the door, what do you want? No, no. Kick as much as you want, until you're satisfied. Sorry to disturb you. The 5 of them quickly waved their hands and disappeared as if they were running for their lives. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Senior Marshal Brother Frenzy's face slapping is indeed different. The madman smiled proudly, you just said that when you came in yesterday, someone came to find trouble with you? Qin Feiyang nodded and briefly explained the situation at that time. After listening, Hua Yi shook his head and sighed, I really didn't expect that after Feng Wenhai was expelled from 9 Heaven Palace, there would still be people willing to work for him. From this, it can be seen how terrifying Feng Wenhai's influence in the enforcement hall was. Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang frowned, let's not talk about this first, how did you guys come in? Mu Tianyang sighed, it's a long story, let's find a place to talk. Qin Feiyang looked meaningfully at Mu Tianyang and smiled, then let's go to my spatial divine artifact. Clearly, Mu Tianyang didn't want to talk about some things in the prison because the walls had ears. And the spatial divine artifact Qin Feiyang mentioned wasn't the ancient castle, but the Black Tortoise world. In the depths of 9 Heaven Palace, in a courtyard, a divine power barrier enveloped the main hall. Inside the barrier, Feng Yuan sat in front of a tea table, angrily glaring at Jin Yunchang, what are you doing? Who told you to act on your own? Jin Yunchang asked suspiciously, father-in-law, isn't this a good thing? Good? Then tell me, what's good about it? Feng Yuan said angrily. Now that the 4 of them are locked in prison, isn't that good? Jin Yunchang retorted. But do you know that they're just ordinary prisoners? This means that Shengguan Fenglan doesn't believe that they killed Chengli. Shengguan Fenglan will definitely investigate to the end. Feng Yuan said. Jin Yunchang smiled and said, father-in-law, don't worry, we did it very cleanly, Shengguan Fenglan definitely won't be able to find out. You're still proud? Do you know what the consequences will be if it's found out that Chengli was killed by you and Yuzijia? You don't know? Then this old man will tell you. Wuxia is the disciple of the second elder. Even if the matter is exposed, the second elder will find a way to protect him. What about you? Who will protect you? This old man's position in Nine Heaven Palace is not as high as the second elder, so I definitely won't be able to protect you. At that time, you will be the scapegoat. Feng Yuan shouted. What about my son? Are you going to let him die in vain? He's also your grandson. Father-in-law, to tell you the truth, ever since he died, I've been thinking about avenging him. This time I finally found an opportunity. How can I let it go like this? Jin Yunchang said bitterly. Hearing this, Feng Yuan fell silent. Father, in fact, this matter was planned by me, it has little to do with Yunchang. But suddenly, a woman's voice rang out. Following closely, a purple-clothed woman appeared out of thin air in the enchantment, standing beside Jin Yunchang, and bowing to Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan was taken aback, hurriedly got up, and said in surprise, when did you come out of seclusion? A few days ago. The woman said. That's right. This person was Feng Zihan and Feng Zijuan's mother, the law enforcement hall elder, Yin Hui. A few days ago? Feng Yuan was slightly taken aback, and said suspiciously, since you came out of seclusion, why didn't you tell this old man? The news of me coming out was deliberately concealed, because I didn't want to attract the attention of Jiang Haotian and the others, and I wanted to investigate one thing. Yin Hui respectfully replied. What is it? Feng Yuan asked. Yin Hui's eyes flashed with a cold light, and said in a deep voice, who killed Zijuan? Feng Yuan asked, then did you find out? Yes. Yin Hui nodded. Chapter 2133. Who? Feng Yuan asked. His old eyes flashed with killing intent. Jiang Haotian. Yin Hui enunciated each word. What? It's really him. Feng Yuan was stunned and hurriedly said, do you have evidence? Yes. Yin Hui nodded. Quickly show it to this old man. Feng Yuan was impatient. He had long suspected Qin Feiyang, but because there was no evidence, he could only put this matter aside. Father, don't be anxious. I still have something to do. When this matter is done, I will tell the truth in front of the great elder. At that time, Jiang Haotian will definitely die. Yin Hui said. All right then. Feng Yuan nodded, pondered for a while, and said, but Mu Tianyang, I've heard about Mu Tianyang's relationship with you from Yunchang, but he's just a subordinate, it doesn't matter if he dies. Moreover, Zijuan's death is also related to him. Yin Hui said. It's also related to him? Feng Yuan was surprised. Damn it. Then all the more we can't let him go. Actually, to tell you the truth, this old man originally planned to kill him immediately after eliminating Jiang Haotian. This time, Mu Tianyang also gave this old man an idea, saying that we should bring Jiang Haotian and Hua Yi into the Sky Dragon Sea. This way, there will be a lot of opportunities to kill them. But now it seems that there's no need for that. However, this old man is very concerned about the blood blade in Mu Tianyang's hand. If there's a chance, we must get it. Feng Yuan said. Prison. Inside the Black Tortoise realm. Qin Feiyang's group of 4 sat around a stone table in the courtyard. Wuxia and Jin Yunchang again? Qin Feiyang frowned after listening to Mu Tianyang's story. Mu Tianyang said, you also guessed that Jin Yunchang was involved in this matter? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. He looked at Mu Tianyang and said, aren't you with Feng Yuan now? Does this have anything to do with Feng Yuan? I haven't heard him mention it at all. However, since Jin Yunchang is involved, this matter must have something to do with him. Mu Tianyang said. Hua Yi smiled and said, "It seems like Feng Yuan doesn't truly trust you. I don't know if he trusts me or not. But why do I feel like there's something fishy about this?" Mu Tianyang frowned. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi looked at him suspiciously. "A few days ago, I gave Feng Yuan the idea to go to the Heavenly Dragon Sea and eliminate you all on the way there. Logically, he shouldn't have attacked you all at a time like this," Mu Tianyang said. Hua Yi pondered for a moment and said, "Could it be that he changed his mind at the last moment?" Mu Tianyang rubbed his forehead and sighed, "Maybe. No matter what, we can't let our guard down this time. Because we don't know what Feng Yuan and Yuzijia are planning. Also, Yuzijia blatantly came to frame us. Could it be related to the second elder?" Qin Feiyang said. Second elder. When Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang heard this, their hearts became heavy. If it was really related to the second elder, then this matter would not be ordinary trouble. "I didn't expect it. You guys actually did so many things behind my back, especially you, Mu Tianyang, you actually lurked around Feng Yuan." At this time, Madman, who had not spoken all this time, looked at the three of them and said. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and smiled. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Senior brother Madman, take us to your spatial divine object for a stroll?" Madman was slightly taken aback, shook his head and said, "There's nothing to stroll around." Qin Feiyang said, "Is there nothing to stroll around, or do you not want us to go in? Why do you talk so much nonsense?" Madman glared at Qin Feiyang, stood up and scanned the Black Tortoise realm, and said, "I'll take a good stroll around your spatial divine object first." Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank. With a wave of his hand, he brought the three of them out of the Black Tortoise realm and appeared in the prison. Madman immediately glared at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "There's nothing to stroll around in my spatial divine object." Lotus Lake. A black-haired old man appeared out of thin air and hurriedly entered the pavilion. Inside the pavilion, Shengguan Fenglan sat alone at the coffee table with her head lowered and a frown on her face. She didn't even notice the black-haired old man walking in front of her. The black-haired old man frowned and said, "Fenglan." Shengguan Fenglan shuddered and hurriedly raised her head to look at the old man. Then, she immediately stood up and bowed, "Greetings, Great Elder." The Great Elder sat opposite Shengguan Fenglan and asked, "Are you worried about Jiang Haotian and the others?" Shengguan Fenglan nodded. "This old man is also here for this matter. Did they kill Chengli or not?" The Great Elder frowned. "No. You also know Madman's personality. Although he is arrogant and domineering, he still has a sense of propriety. And Madman also said that it was Yuzijia and Jin Yunchang who worked together to frame them." Shengguan Fenglan said. "Then do you believe it?" The Great Elder asked. "Of course I believe it, and I have already sent my confidants to secretly follow the two of them. I just don't know if they can find evidence." Shengguan Fenglan said. "No matter what, this matter must be investigated clearly. If it was really Yuzijia and Jin Yunchang who framed them, then even if Feng Yuan and Second Elder plead for them, this old man will not let them off." The Great Elder said solemnly. Shengguan Fenglan said with a smile, "It seems that you still care about Madman." Sigh. After all, for so many years, he is like this old man's grandson. Now that something has happened to him, how can this old man not worry? The Great Elder sighed. Duh. Before the Great Elder's voice fell, accompanied by a series of footsteps, a black-clothed man walked in. Seeing that the Great Elder was also here, the black-clothed man was stunned, then quickly bowed and said, "Greetings, Great Elder." The Great Elder nodded. "How is it?" Shengguan Fenglan looked at the black-clothed man and asked. The black-clothed man shook his head and said, "Since Yuzijia left the St. Peak, this subordinate has been secretly following him, but from beginning to end, he has never mentioned anything about framing Madman and the others. Shangguan Fenglan frowned and said, I didn't expect this child to be so cautious. Yu Zijie is a shrewd person, how could he let us easily catch him? The great elder shook his head and asked, what about Jin Yunchang? This subordinate is not sure. Because Jin Yunchang was followed by Wang Yun. The black-clothed man shook his head. Before his voice fell, another black-clothed woman hurriedly walked in. This woman was Wang Yun. Shangguan Fenglan hurriedly said, Wang Yun, how is it? Wang Yun bowed to the great elder and said, Jin Yunchang went to see Feng Yuan, and this subordinate also saw a person. Who? Shangguan Fenglan asked. Yin Hui. Wang Yun said. Yin Hui? Isn't she cultivating in seclusion? Shangguan Fenglan was surprised. I'm not sure either. Feng Yuan set up a divine force barrier, I can't hear what they are saying. But there is one thing that is very strange. Before Yin Hui appeared, Feng Yuan seemed to be a little angry, as if he was scolding Jin Yunchang. But after Yin Hui appeared, Feng Yuan's attitude changed. In the end, they even talked and laughed. Wang Yun said. Yin Hui, Feng Yuan, could it be that this matter is related to Yin Hui? The great elder frowned. Great elder, why don't we use your method of astronomical phenomena to monitor them? Shangguan Fenglan suggested. It's useless. Because what you can think of, they can also think of, so they will definitely prevent this old man from spying. And the divine force barrier set up by Feng Yuan is the best proof. The great elder shook his head. Then what should we do? Shangguan Fenglan raised her eyebrows. Wang Yun said, Great elder, hall master, why don't we capture Jin Yunchang? Jin Fatso was killed by Jiang Haotian, Jin Yunchang hates Jiang Haotian to the bone, I'm afraid that even if we torture him, he won't tell the truth. And Yu Zijie is even more so. Before we have evidence, if we make a move on him, I'm afraid that before the interrogation begins, the second elder will already come to our door. Shangguan Fenglan sighed. Wang Yun nodded, it made sense. Shangguan Fenglan pondered for a while. She looked at the first elder and said, First elder, I think we should bide our time on this matter because they will definitely have a next step in their plan. When the time comes, we will deal with them. All right. The great elder nodded. In the blink of an eye. 2 days passed. To Shangguan Fenglan's surprise, Feng Yuan, Jin Yunchang, Yin Hui, and Yu Zijie didn't do anything these 2 days. However, the disciples of the sect, as well as the people outside of the sect, were discussing these two matters. How is it possible? Jiang Haotian is such a kind person, why would he do such a thing? Could it be that he was pretending to do all those things in the past, deliberately doing it for us to see? Pretending? I don't believe it, there must be something fishy about this. Yes, I don't believe it either. Even if Yu Zijie has evidence, even if they caught him in the act, it doesn't mean that this matter is true. Moreover, based on the video released by Yu Zijie, those 4 people do deserve to die. That's right. At first, they agreed to 400,000 soul stones, but in the end, they went back on their word and changed it to 4 million, and Jiang Haotian also agreed. But in the end, when they saw that Jiang Haotian was easy to bully, they actually asked for 100 million soul stones each. If it were me, I would also want to kill. Besides, it's just a private transaction with others, what's so strange about it? Can you guarantee that no one else in the resource hall has done such a thing? It's just that no one knows. In short, we can't just say that Jiang Haotian is a hypocrite based on this matter. Some people had always trusted Qin Feiyang and exonerated Qin Feiyang. But there were also people who talked behind his back, saying that Qin Feiyang was a hypocrite. In short, there were people saying all kinds of things. The most worried person was Shangguan Qiu. One had to know that in the entire North region, only Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang knew how to refine the 9 Chu Yellow Dragon Pill, 9 Transformation Dragon Blood Pill, and 4 Symbols Infinite Divine Pill. But now, both of them were locked up in prison. If there were any accidents, then no one would be able to refine these pills in the future, right? She had also asked the Vice Pavilion Master and the Pavilion Master about this matter. But whether it was the Pavilion Master or the Vice Pavilion Master, they all had the attitude of waiting and watching. Because this was an internal matter of Empyrean Palace, they couldn't interfere. Chapter 2134. Another 3 days passed. In other words, 5 days had passed since the incident. This morning, a purple-clothed young man came to the prison. In the prison, Qin Feiyang and the other 3 were not as worried as everyone imagined. In the middle of the cell, there was a large iron pot. Below it, a cluster of third-grade alchemy fire burned the bottom of the pot red. In the big pot, there was a pot of fragrant meat stewing. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 sat around the iron pot, eating meat and drinking wine while chatting happily. The entire prison was filled with the rich aroma of meat and wine. The meat and wine, the big iron pot, and the alchemy fire were naturally found by Qin Feiyang from the Black Tortoise world. The Black Tortoise world was an independent world. As for this suggestion, it was proposed by the madman. Anyway, it was boring to stay here, so it was better to drink wine and eat meat. In other words, in the past 5 days, they had been eating, drinking, and playing. Qin Feiyang was not in the mood to do so, because he wanted to cultivate. But the madman had been watching him, so he could not go to the castle, so he could only play with the other 3. The enforcers in the prison were all dumbfounded. Because it was the first time they saw someone who was still in the mood to eat meat and drink wine after entering the prison. Boom! The prison's stone door opened. The purple-clothed young man walked in and immediately smelled the fragrance of meat and wine. What's going on? The purple-clothed young man was a little stunned. He followed the fragrance of meat and wine, and when he saw the situation of Qin Feiyang and the other 3, he was immediately stunned at the door. What the hell? Are they really here to stay in the prison? Qin Feiyang and the other 3 also noticed the purple-clothed young man and were slightly stunned. Then, Qin Feiyang stood up, looked at the purple-clothed young man, and asked with a smile, "Gongzi Feng, why are you here?" "I'm here to see you," Gongzi Feng answered instinctively, but before he finished, he frowned and said, "Wait, what's going on? Isn't it obvious? We're drinking wine and eating meat." Hua Yi grinned. Gongzi Feng was a little stunned. How could there be preferential treatment in this prison? These fellows were too arrogant. Where did they place the enforcers in the prison? "Since you're here, let's go together." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, took out a stool, and placed it at the side. "That's not a good idea." Gongzi Feng was somewhat hesitant. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "Senior brother Crazy is here. Don't be afraid." Gongzi Feng glanced at the madman, then looked at Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi. He clenched his teeth and said, "Fine, I'll accompany you in your madness." As he spoke, he walked to Qin Feiyang's side and sat down on a stool. Then, he picked up the wine pot beside him and took a big gulp. Madman glanced at Gongzi Feng and sent a voice transmission. "Kid, you're acquainted with this person?" "Yes. In the past, he contributed a lot in dealing with Feng Wenhai and Feng Yuan." Qin Feiyang thought. Ugh. Madman was stunned. Mu Tianyang asked, "Gongzi Feng, are you really here to visit us?" "Not really." Gongzi Feng shook his head and looked outside the door. He asked in a low voice, "Is it convenient to talk here?" Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other. Madman waved his hand and set up a divine power barrier. He looked at Gong Zifeng and said, "Speak now." Gong Zifeng took another sip from the wine pot and said in a deep voice, "Actually, all of this is Yu Zijia and Jin Yunchang's plan. It seems that you're here to tip them off. But we've already guessed what you said." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "Guessed?" Gong Zifeng was stunned and shook his head with a smile. "That's right. With your brains, you should be able to think of this." Qin Feiyang said, "Although we can think of this, there are still many doubts in our hearts. Can you answer us? This matter isn't as simple as you think. Yesterday, I asked Jin Yunchang to go to the Yulan Pavilion and drank with him until midnight. I believe that you've already guessed that I asked him to drink with me to get information from him. Although Jin Yunchang is my uncle, he usually ignores me. At first, he didn't mention a single word about this matter. However, under my fawning and currying favor with him, coupled with the effects of alcohol, he finally revealed everything. The real mastermind of this matter is actually Yin Hui." Gong Zifeng said. "Yin Hui?" Qin Feiyang and the other three looked at each other. Some time ago, she already came out of seclusion, but she didn't say anything. She has been secretly investigating the cause of Feng Zijuan's death and plotting how to get rid of you. Gong Zifeng said in a deep voice. Madman frowned and said, "I didn't expect that woman to be so shrewd. Quite terrifying. And I heard that she has already found evidence of Feng Zijuan's death." Gong Zifeng said. "That's not scary, right? Only the few of us know about this matter. Even senior brother Madman doesn't know." Qin Feiyang frowned. "What? You killed Feng Zijuan?" Madman was stunned. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. Madman said, "In that case, you were also the one who extorted White Tiger's blood essence?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded again. "Fuck, I just took office, and you're already causing trouble for me. Do you believe that I won't destroy you?" Madman said angrily. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and looked at Gong Zifeng. "Are you sure that Yin Hui has already found evidence?" Jin Yunchang said so. "I'm not sure whether it's true or not." Gong Zifeng shook his head, his face full of worry. "Because he was the one who killed Feng Zijuan. Even if they find out, you don't have to worry. Because according to the current situation, they don't know that you are also involved. Otherwise, Jin Yunchang wouldn't have gone drinking with you." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Gong Zifeng was stunned and said, "That makes sense, but we still can't be careless." "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "Then how did they set up the trap? And that Yu Zijia, how did he know that the four of them would come to my cave abode at night to trade with me for the dragon god's flower? This is Yin Hui's trap. Yin Hui gave them the dragon god's flower. Because she found out that you are an alchemist and might be interested in the dragon god's flower, so she asked the four of them to bring the dragon god's flower to the resource hall. Of course, at first, she wasn't completely confident that you would take the bait. But she didn't expect that you would really take the bait. Then, she carried out her plan. First, she found Yu Zijia. Because of senior brother Madman, Yu Zijia held a grudge against you. After hearing Yin Hui's plan, he agreed without a second thought. Then, she found Jin Yunchang. You killed Fatso Jin, so it was even more impossible for Jin Yunchang to refuse. Then, what happened next happened. Gong Zifeng said. I see. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. Hua Yi said unhappily, Brother Jiang, look, it's all your fault. If you didn't have any ideas about the dragon god's flower, none of this shit would have happened. You can't blame Brother Jiang for this. Even if the bait of the dragon god's flower failed, Yin Hui would have sent out a bait that was even more tempting. It's just a pity that the four of them died unjustly. Gong Zifeng sighed. Qin Feiyang said, this is the result of being greedy. If they didn't listen to Yin Hui, would they have died? Gong Zifeng nodded, looked at the four of them, and said, that's what happened. I wonder if you have any plans now? Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said with a smile, I do have one, but it'll have to rely on you. Rely on me? Gong Zifeng was stunned. Yes. As long as you can get evidence that they framed us, then we can turn defeat into victory. Qin Feiyang said. This, I'm afraid I can't. Gong Zifeng was a little troubled. If you can ask Jin Yunchang out once, then you can ask him out a second time. As long as you record your conversation with Jin Yunchang, then it can be used as evidence. Qin Feiyang said. Gong Zifeng pondered for a while and nodded, okay, I'll give it a try, but you have to promise that you will protect my safety afterwards. Because once I take out the evidence, Feng Yuan and the others will definitely not let me go. Frenzy said domineeringly, don't worry, I'll protect you in the future. Thank you, senior brother Frenzy. Gong Zifeng hurriedly stood up and cupped his hands. With Frenzy's protection, there would definitely be no problem. Mu Tianyang held the wine pot and said with a smile, come, let's continue drinking. Gong Zifeng also held the wine pot and drank with the four of them. About an hour later. Gong Zifeng put down the wine pot and stood up with a smile, I can't stay any longer in case Yin Hui becomes suspicious. I'll go back first. Be careful. Qin Feiyang reminded. Gong Zifeng nodded and was about to leave when he suddenly looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Big brother Jiang, you know where Guyong is, right? I know. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then where is he now? I heard from Gao Xiaolong that you're going to ask him to help me. Why haven't I seen him after so long? Gong Zifeng was suspicious. There's a change of plans. Qin Feiyang said. I see. Gong Zifeng nodded and said, then can you tell me? To be honest, I really need someone who can give me advice and advice. Guyong is indeed smart, but he doesn't want to enter the Nine Heavens Palace now. Let's not force him. Qin Feiyang said. Gong Zifeng smiled and said, just tell me, I want to talk to him personally. This, Qin Feiyang hesitated and nodded, all right, he's now. But Qin Feiyang's words stopped abruptly as his eyes flickered slightly. What's wrong? Gong Zifeng looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, with us giving you advice, you don't need him anymore. Gong Zifeng said, I can't trouble you guys for everything. After all, you guys have your own things to do. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice, Qin Feiyang, what are you doing? Isn't it just Guyong? There's no harm in telling him. Hua Yi and Frenzy also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Something's wrong. Qin Feiyang said inwardly. What's wrong? The three of them were even more confused. Gong Zifeng and I have known each other for a long time. Why didn't he ask about Guyong's whereabouts before? Moreover, Gao Xiaolong is a spy I placed beside him. Logically speaking, such a sensible person like Gao Xiaolong shouldn't tell Gong Zifeng that I have the idea of letting Guyong help him. Qin Feiyang secretly said. Chapter 2135. You're saying that there's something fishy going on? Mu Tianyang was bewildered. I don't know. I just feel uneasy. I think it's better to confirm it. Qin Feiyang secretly said. He glanced at Gong Zifeng and took out an image crystal. Who should I send a message to? Mu Tianyang and the other two looked at him suspiciously. Gao Xiaolong. Qin Feiyang secretly said. It's useless. Because we can't send a message to anyone outside here. The madman transmitted. Can't send a message? Qin Feiyang frowned. Could it be that you're thinking too much? Gong Zifeng killed Feng Zijuan with his own hands. This is enough to prove his sincerity. Mu Tianyang secretly said. If it was someone else, I wouldn't be suspicious. But this person's position is unstable. I'm a little worried. Moreover, I believe that Gao Xiaolong won't easily reveal this matter to Gongzi Feng. Taking a step back, even if there's no problem with Gongzi Feng, it's best to confirm it first. After all, what we encountered this time is different from the past. If we're not careful, we might lose our lives. In short, it's never wrong to be careful. Qin Feiyang secretly said. Jiang Haotian's words make sense. This time, we suffered because of our carelessness. Otherwise, why would we stay in this damned place? The madman transmitted. That's true. Mu Tianyang secretly agreed. Gongzi Feng looked at the image crystal in Qin Feiyang's hand and asked suspiciously, Big Brother Jiang, what are you doing? Nothing. Qin Feiyang put away the image crystal and looked at Gongzi Feng with a smile. We've known each other for a long time, right? Gongzi Feng nodded and smiled. We knew each other before you entered the Nine Heavens Palace. I still remember that your cultivation back then was lower than mine. But now, you've surpassed me. Yes. Time really flies. Qin Feiyang sighed. Gongzi Feng was even more confused. What was he talking about? Qin Feiyang's expression suddenly became serious. He formed a seal with both hands and a puppet seal appeared. Gongzi Feng stared at the puppet imprint in surprise and said, Big Brother Jiang, this is, back then, when Qin Feiyang controlled Ryuko Yang, Gongzi Feng was also present, but he didn't say anything in the crowd. Thus, he knew that the mark was a kind of control-type secret art that possessed the ability to read the memories of others. Although you don't have a good relationship with the Feng family, you are still their family. You must know a lot about what they have done. And now, I need to understand this. Speak. You won't be able to finish speaking in a short time, so I want to read your memories directly. Don't worry, after reading your memories, I will immediately remove my control over you. Qin Feiyang said. When Gongzi Feng heard this, his expression changed slightly, and he retreated somewhat flustered. What happened? I don't mean you any harm. I just want to know what they did. Qin Feiyang looked at Gongzi Feng suspiciously. If you want to know all these, I can find a time to tell you everything. There is no need to read my memories. Gongzi Feng looked vigilant. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Didn't I say just now? This is more efficient. If you tell me, how long will it take? Moreover, I might forget some things. Seeing that Qin Feiyang insisted on reading his memories, the panic on Gongzi Feng's face became more obvious. Is there really something fishy? Frenzy and the other two couldn't help but frown. What's wrong with you? Isn't it just reading your memories? What are you afraid of? Could it be that you did something wrong to me, and you don't dare to let me read your memories? Qin Feiyang frowned. No. You are so good to me. How can I do something wrong to you? Gongzi Feng waved his hand repeatedly. Then what are you feeling guilty about? Hurry up. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the puppet imprint flew towards Gongzi Feng's head. Gongzi Feng hurriedly hid to the side and said with a smile, Next time. I still have something to do and have to go out immediately. Senior Brother Frenzy, please remove the divine power barrier. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light as he nodded to Frenzy. Boom! Frenzy released his pressure and directly imprisoned Gongzi Feng. The puppet imprint immediately entered Gongzi Feng's head like a stream of light. Gongzi Feng immediately held his head and howled miserably. What are you doing? But at this moment, an old voice exploded in the prison like a thunderclap. Following that, an old man appeared outside the barrier. It was Elder Yun. Elder Yun waved his hand and the barrier set up by Frenzy instantly shattered. But at the same time, Qin Feiyang brought frenzy and the other two and disappeared without a trace. Elder Yun scanned the empty prison and couldn't help but frown. Black Tortoise World. Above the medicine field. Hua Yi frowned and said, "Senior brother Frenzy, didn't you use a barrier to isolate it? Why can that old man still see it?" Frenzy said, "The barrier can only have the effect of soundproofing. So it's like that." Hua Yi nodded. In other words, although Elder Yun couldn't hear what they were saying, he could see what they were doing. Immediately after, the three of them looked at Qin Feiyang and Gong Zifeng. Gong Zifeng's face was filled with pain as he felt as if his soul was being torn apart. And Qin Feiyang's face gradually darkened. Seeing this, Mu Tianyang frowned and said, "It seems that there really is a problem with this person." Hua Yi smiled and said, "If that's the case, then Brother Jiang will probably be angry." Qin Feiyang's kindness to Gong Zifeng was obvious to all. If Gong Zifeng really did something to betray them, then it would be chilling. Boom! A moment later, a terrifying killing intent suddenly rushed out from Qin Feiyang's body. The pain on Gong Zifeng's face also disappeared. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, he was drowned by the killing intent again. His body and mind trembled, and his whole body was cold. "What's wrong?" Mu Tianyang and the other two looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "His purpose of coming to the prison this time is actually to get Guyong's whereabouts from my mouth." N. The three of them frowned. And all of this was ordered by Yin Hui. "And Gao Xiaolong is already dead," Qin Feiyang said. "Who killed him?" Hua Yi's face changed. "It's him." Qin Feiyang pointed at Gong Zifeng. "Damn it." Hua Yi's eyes were gloomy. Qin Feiyang sighed and said, "I knew it, Gao Xiaolong wouldn't talk too much. It turns out that he was forced to do so. In fact, he already knew that Gao Xiaolong was a spy that I planted beside him, so he killed him." Mu Tianyang said, "In other words, Gong Zifeng really betrayed you?" Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Gong Zifeng, asking, "What else do you want to say?" At this moment, Gong Zifeng was like a pile of mud, paralyzed in the void, despair written all over his face. He turned a deaf ear to Qin Feiyang's words. Mu Tianyang frowned and said, "What's going on? Quickly tell us." "Ho!" Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and moved his gaze away from Gong Zifeng. He looked at the three of them and said, "Feng Wenhai was expelled from the Nine Heavens Palace, and Feng Zijuan was killed. Feng Yuan and the others hid it from Yin Hui because they didn't want to disturb her cultivation. When she came out of seclusion and found out about these things, she was furious. However, this woman is extremely shrewd. She suppressed her anger in her heart and secretly investigated everything. But because we did it cleanly, she couldn't find any clues. She was even prepared to give up. At the same time, Feng Zijuan's death made her very tired, but she also opened up a lot and wanted to accept Gong Zifeng. So, she found Gong Zifeng and said that she wanted to give his mother a status and that he would be her son in the future. She did this because she considered the issue of carrying on the family line. After all, Gong Zifeng is the only male in the Feng family. When Gong Zifeng heard this, he was naturally very happy. When Qin Feiyang said this, Madman frowned and said, "So he betrayed us?" "It's not that simple." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Madman was stunned and asked suspiciously, "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang looked at Gong Zifeng and sighed, "To be honest, I've always underestimated this person." Madman and the others looked at each other and were even more confused. When he heard that Yin Hui wanted to help his mother and treat him as her son, he was overjoyed. However, he suddenly thought of the real cause of Feng Zijuan's death. Feng Zijuan died in his hands. Once this matter is exposed, what will the consequences be? This was a question that he didn't even dare to think about. After thinking about it again and again, he finally thought of a bold plan to silence us. Qin Feiyang said. Silence us? The three raised their eyebrows. Yes. The target of silence is naturally us. Because I saw him kill Feng Zijuan with my own eyes. And although you guys weren't present at the time, you have a good relationship with me, so you definitely know about this. So, he wants to get rid of all of us. First, he took the initiative to find Yin Hui and tell her that Feng Zijuan was killed by us. Second, he set up a trap to put us in prison. This is to pave the way for the third step. The third step is to enter the prison and use his relationship with us to find out Guyong's whereabouts. Because Guyong has a good relationship with me, he was worried that Guyong would know that he killed Feng Zijuan, so he wanted to silence him as well. And the fourth step is to enter the meeting hall and say the cause of Feng Zijuan's death in front of the big shots, completely ending our lives. Qin Feiyang said. I'll go. These steps are one after another, and they are all linked together. It can be said to be flawless. I really didn't know that he was such a terrifying schemer before. Mu Tianyang and the other two were shocked. Qin Feiyang said with a wry smile, not to mention you guys, even I didn't see it before. Mu Tianyang asked, then what did he say to Yin Hui? He told Yin Hui. On the night of Feng Zijuan's death, he had something to say to Feng Zijuan, and then he happened to see me killing Feng Zijuan. Yin Hui was already very angry about Feng Zijuan's death, so he didn't have to deliberately create a false impression. Yin Hui would believe any excuse he made up. Qin Feiyang said. Indeed. However, since young Master Feng said that he saw you kill Feng Zijuan, he has been hiding it in his heart all this time and didn't say it out loud. Didn't Yin Hui get angry? Mu Tianyang said. Yin Hui also asked him why he didn't say it earlier. Young Master Feng is smart. He said that he was afraid that I would take revenge on him, so he didn't dare to say it. Qin Feiyang said. Chapter 2136. Mu Tianyang looked at Gong Zifeng, who was paralyzed in the air, and said in admiration, you can even think of such a plan. You're really good at hiding your strength. I really thought that all of this was planned by Yin Hui. It turns out that the person behind the scenes is you. Awesome. Madman also gave Gong Zifeng a thumbs up. Facing such praise, Gong Zifeng couldn't feel happy at all. His heart was filled with fear. Hua Yi shook his head and said regretfully, it's a pity that you met a stronger opponent. Otherwise, your plan would have succeeded. Gong Zifeng's body trembled. He raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang. Big brother Jiang, I also have a lot of helplessness. Is this your excuse for betraying us? Helplessness? Who doesn't have helplessness in this world? Qin Feiyang said angrily. Gong Zifeng lowered his head again. He was extremely ashamed. From the beginning, you took the initiative to find me and ask for my help. What about me? During the time I helped you, did I ask for any conditions? I don't think so. I really treated you as a friend because we both had the same miserable experience. But how did you repay me? Qin Feiyang shouted. This was the first time he was so angry after entering the ancient world. Even when facing Feng Wenhai's trap and Guo Zixiong's deceit, he wasn't this angry. I'm sorry, Gong Zifeng mumbled. Can an apology make up for your betrayal? You've really disappointed me. Back then, I was blind to choose to help you. But it doesn't matter now. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Gong Zifeng shivered and hurriedly said, don't kill me, I beg you, even if he doesn't kill you, I will kill you today. You even dared to scheme against me. You really have the guts of a leopard. Madman grinned. Gong Zifeng said, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I just wanted to give my mother a status. You're still trying to gain sympathy? If you just want to give your mother a status, Yin Hui has already agreed to it. Then why did you still set up a trap to harm us? Your goal is not only to give your mother a status, but also yourself. You don't want to lose everything Yin Hui has given you. In other words, you're an ungrateful, treacherous, despicable man. Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. Gong Zifeng's body trembled. What are you talking about? Madman sneered, rolled up his sleeves, and said, Today, I'll definitely let you taste what it means to be in so much pain that you wish you were dead. No, I beg you. Gong Zifeng hurriedly shook his head in fear. Qin Feiyang sighed and stopped Madman. Don't kill him yet. What? You can still tolerate it? Madman raised his eyebrows. It's not that I can tolerate it. It's because we still have to rely on him to break out of this situation. Qin Feiyang said. Count on him? Madman frowned. Qin Feiyang nodded, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. This time, I won't show mercy. Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang have to die, and Yu Zijie too. I won't let him have an easy time. When Gong Zifeng heard this, a chill appeared in his heart. As for you, Qin Feiyang lowered his head and looked at Gong Zifeng. As long as you cooperate well, I'll choose to let you live. But remember, there's only one chance. Okay. Gong Zifeng hurriedly nodded. After a while, Qin Feiyang's group of 4 and Gong Zifeng finally came out of the Black Tortoise world. Elder Yun had been standing outside the door. When he saw them appear, he sized up Gong Zifeng, then looked at Qin Feiyang's group of 4, and frowned. What did you do to him? We didn't do anything. It's just an old friend gathering, and we don't want to be disturbed. Gong Zifeng, am I right? Madman put his arm around Gong Zifeng's shoulder and smiled. Yes, yes, yes. Gong Zifeng nodded repeatedly. Elder Yun glanced at Madman, then looked at Qin Feiyang's group of 3, then looked at Gong Zifeng and said, If there's nothing else, then leave. Okay. Gong Zifeng replied and cupped his hands at Qin Feiyang's group of 4, then I'll go back first. The 4 of them nodded with a smile on their faces. It was as if the previous incident had never happened. Gong Zifeng turned around and left. Elder Yun also prepared to leave. Qin Feiyang suddenly spoke and looked at Elder Yun. Old senior, please wait for a moment. Elder Yun was stunned and turned around to look at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang was silent for a while, then cupped his hands and smiled. I have to thank Senior for the previous incident. Otherwise, I would have been in trouble by now. Elder Yun said coldly, I was just handling it impartially. There's no need to thank me. Old Senior is noble and selfless. This junior admires you. This junior also hopes that old senior can continue to carry on and be a good example for us juniors. Qin Feiyang smiled. Elder Yun squinted his eyes. These words weren't simple. Qin Feiyang continued, we, the younger generation disciples, also need an example. Don't worry. I have always stood on the side of justice. I won't side with anyone. Even if my disciple makes a mistake, I won't let it go. After saying that, Elder Yun turned around and left without looking back. Mu Tianyang glanced at Elder Yun's back, then looked at Madman and said, Can this old man's character be trusted? Yes. In this 9-heaven palace, I only admire 2 people. The first is this old man. Madman smiled confidently. What about the other person? Qin Feiyang's group of 3 was curious. Someone that Madman admired definitely wasn't simple. Madman said, You've all seen him before. He's the old man guarding the stairway. So it's him. The 3 of them were enlightened. Qin Feiyang said, speaking of which, what's the identity of that old man? How strong is he? His identity, his strength, Madman pondered for a moment and said, you just need to know that he is Shangguan Fenglan's master. What? Shangguan Fenglan's master. Qin Feiyang's group of 3 was dumbfounded. This was too shocking. Don't think about it. Let's go and continue drinking and eating meat. Drinking and eating meat in this prison has a different flavor. Madman chuckled. Qin Feiyang's group of 3 looked at each other and smiled. Indeed. Drinking and eating meat here and in a restaurant were 2 completely different feelings. Outside. Lotus Lake. A purple-clothed youth entered the pavilion. When Shangguan Fenglan saw the purple-clothed youth, she was slightly stunned and said, what are you doing here? Greetings, Palace Lord. The purple-clothed youth bowed and said, Jiang Haotian and senior brother Madman told me to tell you that you don't need to interfere. They have already thought of a countermeasure. Is that so? Shangguan Fenglan was surprised. Yes. They said that you just need to wait and watch a good show. The purple-clothed youth said. Okay. Shangguan Fenglan nodded. The purple-clothed youth said, then this disciple will take his leave first. Go. Shangguan Fenglan waved her hand. The purple-clothed youth turned and walked out of the pavilion. Looking at the clear sky, he sighed, I'm still inferior to him in the end. With that, he soared into the sky and disappeared like lightning. This person was Gongzi Feng. After leaving Lotus Lake, he did not directly return to the inner sect. Instead, he flew in another direction. Not long after. He landed in front of a courtyard, looked up at the courtyard, took a deep breath, and then pushed the door open and walked in. In the hall, a woman sat beside the tea table. It was Yin Hui. Seeing Gongzi Feng come in, she hurriedly stood up, condensed a divine power barrier, and asked, how is it? Gongzi Feng said, Guyong is dead. Dead? Yin Hui frowned. Yes. Gongzi Feng nodded and said, at first, Jiang Haotian was very vigilant, but when I told him about your plan, I finally gained his trust. He told me that he killed Guyong after Lord Father was expelled from Nine Heavens Palace. Why did he want Guyong? Guyong has followed your grandfather for so many years, and he has a lot of information on your grandfather. He's a good chess piece. Yin Hui was suspicious. According to Jiang Haotian, he wanted to keep Guyong alive, but not only did Guyong not cooperate, he even escaped. In a fit of anger, Jiang Haotian used a soul secret technique called the enslavement seal to erase Guyong's divine soul. Gongzi Feng said. Yin Hui said, in that case, there's no need to consider Guyong anymore? Yes. Although I couldn't kill him with my own hands to avenge Lord Father, at least for now, there's one less worry. Gongzi Feng said. Yes. Yin Hui nodded, pondered for a moment, and said, then let's prepare for the next step. Okay. Let's do it tomorrow morning. Go to the conference hall first and gather all the big shots. Then I'll appear and announce the evil deeds that Jiang Haotian has done. At that time, even the gods won't be able to save him. Gongzi Feng sneered. Yin Hui said with a smile, after we get rid of this kid, I'll immediately give you the status of mother. Thank you. Gongzi Feng was overjoyed. Yin Hui said, we're all family. Why are you saying this? Family. Gongzi Feng muttered. His face was full of self-blame, and he said, should have stood out and told everyone about Jiang Haotian's crimes the moment second brother was killed. It's all because of my cowardice. Auntie, I'm really sorry. Don't blame yourself. After all, Jiang Haotian is indeed a great threat to you. Actually, it's also our fault. If we weren't prejudiced against you, if we cared a little more about you and took care of you a little more, you wouldn't be so afraid of Jiang Haotian. Yin Hui sighed. Thank you for your understanding, Auntie. Gong Zifeng lowered his head and said. Yin Hui waved her hand and said with a smile, go and have a good rest. Prepare for tomorrow. As she spoke, she dispersed the divine power barrier. Okay. This child will take his leave. Gong Zifeng nodded, bowed respectfully, and turned to leave the courtyard. Jiang Haotian, tomorrow, you'll be buried with my child. Cherish what little time you have left. Yin Hui murmured, picked up the teacup, and took a sip. Her eyes flashed with a strong cold light. Chapter 2137. Not long after Gong Zifeng left, the news of Qin Feiyang abusing his power for personal gain, killing people to silence them, as well as Madman and the other two killing Qingli spread even more crazily in Sky Dragon City. And like a plague, with Sky Dragon City as the center, it quickly spread in all directions. Before evening, this matter had spread throughout the entire northern region. Even the remote villages knew about this matter. It could be said that this matter was even bigger than the last time when Feng Wenhai framed Qin Feiyang. For a time, Qin Feiyang and the others were all in a state of criticism. Those who initially believed in Qin Feiyang without a doubt also began to slowly change their views. Perhaps this matter was really Qin Feiyang's fault. He was a hypocrite. Late at night, in a courtyard, Feng Yuan sat alone in the hall, his brows tightly knitted together. Soon, a few figures walked into the hall. It was Yin Hui, Jin Yunchang, and Gong Zifeng. Yin Hui looked at Feng Yuan and asked suspiciously, Father, why are you in such a hurry to find us, did something happen? Feng Yuan condensed a divine power barrier, looked up at Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang, and asked, do you know the situation outside? As for Gong Zifeng, he directly ignored him. What's the situation? Yin Hui was suspicious. Feng Yuan said, the matter between Jiang Haotian and Madman is very fierce now, this old man feels that someone is adding fuel to the fire. Adding fuel to the fire? Yin Hui was stunned. Jin Yunchang laughed, father-in-law, you're thinking too much. Moreover, the fiercer the matter outside, the better it is for us. I agree with brother-in-law's view. The relationship between Madman and the First Elder is obvious to all of us. If we don't make a fuss, maybe Great Elder will protect him this time. On the contrary, if everyone knows about this matter, even if Great Elder wants to protect him, he won't dare to do so. Because it will arouse public anger. Yin Hui laughed. That makes sense. Feng Yuan nodded, then looked at the silent Gong Zifeng and frowned. Didn't this old man only call your aunt and uncle over, why did you also come over? Gong Zifeng immediately lowered his head in fear. Yin Hui smiled and said, Father, I was the one who brought him here. Why did you bring him here? Feng Yuan was puzzled. Father, it's all thanks to him. Yin Hui said. What do you mean? Feng Yuan was bewildered. We're going to start the operation tomorrow, so it's time to tell you about it. Actually, it's like this, Yin Hui told him the whole plan simply and clearly. I see. When Feng Yuan heard this, he was suddenly enlightened. Yin Hui smiled. That's why we have to thank this child. Feng Yuan looked at Gong Zifeng with a gloomy expression. A moment later, Feng Yuan sighed deeply and said, this old man can let bygones be bygones, but we must not make any mistakes in the assembly hall tomorrow. Grandson understands. Gong Zifeng nodded. As long as we can get rid of Jiang Haotian and the others, this old man will do as you wish and give your mother a proper status. Furthermore, this old man will allow you to inherit the Feng family's business in the future. Feng Yuan said again. Thank you, grandfather. Gong Zifeng hurriedly knelt on the ground and said excitedly. Get up. Feng Yuan smiled. Yes. Gong Zifeng respectfully replied and stood beside Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang, his face full of joy. But gradually, he revealed a trace of hesitation. Feng Yuan said, "If you have something to say, just say it." Gong Zifeng said, "Although the plan this time is perfect, I'm still a little worried. After all, Jiang Haotian is not an ordinary person. Don't worry, when Yu Zijia and I killed Chengli, no one saw it. As for Jiang Haotian, then there's even less to worry about. Those 4 disciples have already been killed by Jiang Haotian, and now there's no evidence." Jin Yunchang smiled. Actually, his worry is understandable. Thinking back, how much losses did Jiang Haotian make our Feng family suffer? Although he's our enemy, to be honest, I really admire his brain. Yin Hui sighed. Don't boost others' morale and destroy our own. No matter how terrifying his brain is, isn't it still in our hands now? Feng Yuan sneered. Yin Hui, Jin Yunchang, and Gong Zifeng looked at each other and couldn't help but sneer. The next day, early in the morning, the big shots of 9 Heavens Palace entered the Great Council Hall one after another. Soon, Shengguan Fenglan also entered the Great Council Hall. She glanced at the people present, then sat down at the table. She looked at the Great Elder above and said telepathically, "What the hell is Feng Yuan doing, calling us here early in the morning? Is there a need to think about it? It must have something to do with Madman and the others." The Great Elder thought to himself without any change in his expression. Shengguan Fenglan's heart trembled, and she sighed. It seems that this time, Feng Yuan is going to kill them. The Great Elder nodded without leaving a trace, and asked secretly, "Did you find out anything?" "No. But something very strange happened yesterday," Shengguan Fenglan said. "What strange thing?" The Great Elder was suspicious. Shengguan Fenglan said secretly, "Feng Wenhai's son, Gong Zifeng, actually came to me yesterday, saying that Jiang Haotian and the others already have a plan, and told us not to interfere, just wait and watch the show." "There's such a thing?" The Great Elder was surprised. I'm also puzzled. Gong Zifeng is Feng Yuan's grandson, why would he be involved with Jiang Haotian and the others?" Shengguan Fenglan said. The Great Elder pondered for a while and smiled secretly, "Since Jiang Haotian and the others have said so, then let's wait and watch the show." "Okay." Shengguan Fenglan replied, with some expectation in her eyes. Duh. Suddenly, accompanied by a series of steady footsteps, 3 figures entered the Great Council Hall one after another. The person in the lead was really Feng Yuan. The 2 behind him were Jin Yunchang and Yin Hui. "Greetings, Great Elder." The 3 bowed and saluted. Take a seat." Yin Hui, Jin Yunchang, "You guys take a seat too." The Great Elder nodded and then said with a smile, "Thank you, Great Elder." Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang hurriedly knelt on the ground and thanked him. Because in front of the giants of Jiutian Palace, they were not qualified to sit together. So for them, this was a gift, an honor. After everyone was seated, the Great Elder looked at Feng Yuan and asked with a smile, "Why did you call us all here today?" Feng Yuan nodded. "Then say it." The Great Elder said. Feng Yuan stood up and said, "Great Elder, before I say it, I want to call a few people over." "Who?" The Great Elder was suspicious. Feng Yuan exhaled and said, "Jiang Haotian, Frenzy, Hua Yi, Mu Tianyang. It's really for them." The Great Elder muttered and asked suspiciously, "Why did you call them over?" "Let me keep you in suspense first." Feng Yuan smiled. "Okay." The Great Elder nodded and looked at Shengguan Fenglan, saying, "Jiang Haotian and the others seem to be in your law enforcement hall's prison now, right? Go and bring them here." "Yes." Shengguan Fenglan respectfully responded, then got up and walked out of the hall. But when she walked out of the hall, she couldn't help but be stunned. There was a person standing beside the door. This person was Gong Zifeng. "Greetings, Hall Master." Gong Zifeng bowed and said, "An." Shengguan Fenglan nodded, then rose into the air and flew towards the law enforcement hall. But in her heart, she was muttering, why did Gong Zifeng come to the conference hall, in the prison? The big iron pot was gone, and so was the wine. Instead, there was a tea set and 4 armchairs. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 were lying on the armchairs, drinking tea, chatting, and napping. It was incomparably comfortable. When Shengguan Fenglan came in and saw this scene, the corner of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. Are they here to go to prison? Or to enjoy life? Cough. She stood at the door and coughed dryly. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 were stunned. They raised their heads and looked outside the door. When they saw that it was Shengguan Fenglan, Hua Yi jumped up and ran towards Shengguan Fenglan. He smiled and said, "Lan, I knew you would come to see me." Look at his infatuated look, as if he has never seen a woman before. Frenzy's face was full of disdain. What do you know? This is the taste of love. Qin Feiyang said. The word love was very long. When Shengguan Fenglan heard this, a rare blush crept up her face, but it quickly disappeared. She stared at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and shouted, "What are you still lying there for? Get out with me." Hua Yi stood beside Shengguan Fenglan and also ordered the 3 of them, "Yes, get out." "Are you looking for a beating?" Madman slowly stood up and looked at Hua Yi with an unfriendly gaze. Hua Yi grinned. Shengguan Fenglan's face darkened and said, "Don't talk nonsense, go to the conference hall immediately." Has it finally begun? Qin Feiyang was stunned, then a smile crept up his face. Madman and the other 2 were also full of smiles. Shengguan Fenglan looked at the 4 of them suspiciously and said, "Looking at you, why do you seem to know that we are going to the conference hall today?" "Lan, to tell you the truth, everything is under our control." Hua Yi clenched his fist and smiled proudly. "Is that so?" Shengguan Fenglan was surprised. "Of course. We also know that in addition to you, the Great Elder, and the other big shots, Feng Yuan, Yin Hui, Jin Yunchang, and Gong Zifeng are also in the conference hall." Hua Yi said. "You really know?" Shengguan Fenglan was stunned. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, "Palace Master, let's go, the show is about to begin." Shengguan Fenglan glanced at the 4 of them, then turned and walked outside. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 followed closely behind her. "That's right, Palace Master. Has our matter spread outside?" Qin Feiyang suddenly asked. "Speaking of this, I'm still a little puzzled. Just this morning, I received a report from my subordinates, saying that someone seemed to be secretly adding fuel to the fire, deliberately spreading your matter. Now even those remote villages know about it." Shengguan Fenglan said. "This is a good thing." Qin Feiyang smiled. Frankly speaking, this Gong Zifeng's efficiency was really good. In just one day, it was already so fierce. That's right. This was what he had asked Gong Zifeng to do on purpose. Just like dealing with Feng Wenhai last time, the fiercer the matter, the more exciting and interesting it would be. Chapter 2138. Good news? Shengguan Fenglan was stunned. She glanced at Qin Feiyang and then shook her head. She really couldn't understand what this kid was trying to do. After the group left the prison, they went straight to the conference hall. Soon, the conference hall appeared in their sight. Shengguan Fenglan landed in front of the door and said in a low voice, "Wait outside." After saying that, she entered the door alone. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 stood outside the door and scanned the big shots in the hall. "Big brother Jiang, I have done what you asked me to do. I have also obtained the evidence. You must protect me later, or I will definitely die in the hands of Feng Yuan and the others. Gong Zifeng, who was standing next to him, suddenly transmitted his voice to Qin Feiyang. Don't worry. Qin Feiyang glanced at Gong Zifeng and secretly laughed. Inside the hall, Shengguan Fenglan walked to the opposite side of the First Elder and bowed. First Elder, Jiang Haotian and the others have been brought here. The First Elder nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang and the other three standing at the door. Come in. Qin Feiyang and the other three looked at each other and walked into the hall side by side. Greetings, First Elder. Greetings, Lords. Qin Feiyang, Hua Yi, and Mu Tianyang respectfully bowed to the big shots. Of course. Madman was an exception. The big shots were also curiously sizing them up. They were naturally no strangers to Madman. As for Qin Feiyang, Hua Yi, and Mu Tianyang, although they were no strangers, it was the first time they met face to face. Qin Feiyang was also quietly sizing up these big shots of Nine Heavens Palace. There were a total of more than a dozen people. There were men and women, old and young. The aura emitted by each of them was like a vast ocean, unfathomable. Madman suddenly pointed to a woman sitting next to Feng Yuan and transmitted his voice. She is Yin Hui. Qin Feiyang looked over and his pupils immediately shrank. The aura Yin Hui exuded was not weaker than Feng Wenhai's. Her cultivation is stronger than mine. I used to be a minor paragon god. Now that I've come out of seclusion, should be a major paragon god. Madman thought. Paragon divinity. Qin Feiyang was shocked. He didn't expect this woman's strength to be so terrifying. Hey, hey, hey! Madman suddenly shouted. He looked at the big shots and said unhappily, where are our chairs? Are we just going to stand here like this? How dare you! The great elder coldly shouted. Madman pursed his lips and said, no chairs? Fine, I'll sit on the ground. After saying that, he really sat down on the ground. One of the old men said angrily, Madman, do you know that you look like a scoundrel in the secular world right now? So what if I'm a rascal? Don't look if you don't want to. Madman dug his nose and said lightly. You. The old man was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Cough cough. The First Elder coughed dryly and gave Shengguan Fenglan a look. Shengguan Fenglan understood. She took a step behind Madman and kicked him fiercely. Madman immediately screamed like a pig being slaughtered and jumped up. With so many elders here, how can you be so presumptuous? Behave yourself. Shengguan Fenglan glared at him. You're abusing children. Madman roared in dissatisfaction. Abusing? Children? The big shots' mouths couldn't help but twitch. No matter what, he was a person who had lived for more than 10,000 years, and he actually called himself a child. Wasn't he ashamed? The First Elder's face was also dark as he said angrily, if you continue to mess around, go outside and kneel. Tsk Madman was disdainful, but he finally became obedient. It seemed that he was still a little afraid. The First Elder shook his head weakly and looked at Feng Yuan. We've brought them here, speak. Feng Yuan glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other three, stood up and said, Jiang Haotian used his power for personal gain and silenced people. Madman, Hua Yi, and Mu Tianyang cruelly killed the outer sect elder Chengli. There is conclusive evidence for these two things, and everyone must know it, so this old man won't say more. Now, this old man will announce another major crime of Jiang Haotian. As Feng Yuan spoke, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He turned to look at the door and shouted, Gongzi Feng, come in. Gongzi Feng, who was standing outside the door, immediately ran in and knelt on the ground respectfully. Disciple Gongzi Feng greets the first elder and all the lords. Stand up and speak. The first elder said. Yes. Gongzi Feng nodded and stood beside Qin Feiyang and the other three, but he deliberately kept a distance. Tell the first elder everything you saw. Feng Yuan looked at Gongzi Feng and said. Okay. Gongzi Feng respectfully responded, looked at the first elder and the big shots, and said, First elder, my second brother Feng Zijuan died in the hands of Jiang Haotian. What? Feng Zijuan was killed by Jiang Haotian? The big shots immediately began to discuss. The first elder was also surprised. He looked at Gongzi Feng and frowned. How did you know? I saw it with my own eyes. Gongzi Feng said. You saw it with your own eyes? The first elder was stunned and asked suspiciously, Then why didn't you say it when we investigated this matter? First elder, please forgive me. It wasn't that disciple didn't want to say it, but that disciple didn't dare to. Because Jiang Haotian has the madman's support. If disciple said it, they would definitely hold a grudge against me. Gongzi Feng said. The first elder slammed the table and said angrily, In our nine heavens palace, anyone who makes a mistake will be punished. What are you afraid of? Gongzi Feng hurriedly said, Yes, disciple knows his mistake. Please forgive me, first elder. The first elder sighed and looked at Qin Feiyang. Jiang Haotian, do you admit what Gongzi Feng said? Qin Feiyang was silent. The other three didn't say anything. It was as if they weren't worried at all. The first elder frowned and transmitted his voice, Feng Lan, what's going on? Didn't you say that Gongzi Feng is on Jiang Haotian's side? I'm not sure either. Shangguan Feng Lan secretly said. What the hell were these brats doing? Feng Yuan snorted coldly, First elder, how could he admit to this kind of thing? But just based on Gongzi Feng's one-sided words, it's not enough to prove that this matter is true. After all, Gongzi Feng is a member of your Feng family. The first elder said. Feng Yuan said, It's precisely because he's a member of my Feng family that he won't lie. What do you mean? The first elder was suspicious. There's one thing that the first elder and everyone present might not know. Actually, Gongzi Feng is not the son of Wen Hai and Yin Hui. Feng Yuan said. What? The elders looked at each other. Actually, Gongzi Feng is the son of Wen Hai and a brothel girl. In other words, he is an illegitimate child that isn't recognized. Feng Yuan said. Illegitimate child? Everyone was stunned. When Gongzi Feng heard the words illegitimate child, he also felt an inexplicable sense of humiliation. He slowly lowered his head, not daring to look at everyone's eyes. This matter is a great humiliation to our Feng family, so we have been keeping it a secret. It's also because he's an illegitimate child that our Feng family has always disliked him. He's also very prejudiced against my Feng clan. Think about it, with our relationship, would he fabricate a lie to help us frame Jiang Haotian? If it were you, would you? Feng Yuan said. No. The big shots shook their heads. If it were them, they would only have hatred for the Feng family. So what if he was an illegitimate child? Did he deserve such unfair treatment just because he was an illegitimate child? So, seeing Feng Zijuan, who had always bullied them, get into trouble, they couldn't be happier. Naturally, they wouldn't help the Feng family frame Jiang Haotian. Since it was impossible, then what Gongzi Feng said was the truth. Jiang Haotian, you're too bold. This old man really doesn't know who gave you the courage to act so recklessly in our Nine Heavens Palace. The old man who scolded Frenzy before looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Qin Feiyang was still indifferent. Great elder, this person first killed Zijuan and extorted the white tiger blood essence from this old man. Then, he used his power for personal gain and silenced us. May I ask, how should we deal with such a crime? Feng Yuan said. Kill. He must be killed. Kill one as an example to others. If we let him go like this, then what rules will there be in our 9 Heavens Palace? The big shots expressed their opinions one after another. Lords, there's one more thing. What Jiang Haotian and Frenzy did has now spread throughout the entire northern region. If we still indulge them, I'm afraid it will seriously affect the reputation of our 9 Heavens Palace. Yin Hui suddenly interjected. What? The news has spread throughout the northern region so quickly? Then this matter can't be neglected. Not only Jiang Haotian must be executed, but Frenzy, Hua Yi, and Mu Tianyang must also be executed. Otherwise, our 9 Heavens Palace will be scolded for protecting our disciples. The big shots said one after another. The great elder looked at the intense reaction of the crowd and couldn't help but gradually frown. These 4 bastards, why aren't they fighting back? Shengguan Fenglan was also extremely irritated. Feng Yuan cupped his hands and said, Great elder, we know that you usually like Frenzy, but this time, the matter is too big, please reconsider. Yes, Great Elder, you can't ruin the reputation of our 9 Heavens Palace because of your personal emotions. The others also persuaded. Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang didn't speak anymore, but looked at the big shots with a trace of a smile in their eyes. Then they glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others and couldn't help but sneer in their hearts. Let's see how you can escape this time. Seeing that Qin Feiyang and the other 3 still didn't say anything, the great elder couldn't help but say angrily, the 4 of you really have nothing to say? The 4 of them remained silent. Feng Yuan cupped his hands and said, silence means tacit agreement. Great elder, please give the order. Who? The great elder took a deep breath and looked at the 4 of them. Since you don't want to defend yourselves, then this old man will give the order. This old man announces, but at this moment, Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other and finally reacted. Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand and said with a smile, Great Elder, wait. Chapter 2139. The Great Elder was slightly taken aback. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 3 and frowned, what do you want to say? Feng Yuan, Yin Hui, and Jin Yunchang also looked at the 4 of them suspiciously. At this point, there shouldn't be any excuses, right? Because the situation was already decided. No matter what they said, no one would believe them. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. In fact, these things were fabricated by Yin Hui, Jin Yunchang, and Feng Yuan. No. To be precise, it's a framing. Qin Feiyang said. Framing? The leaders frowned. It's finally starting? Shengguan Fenglan muttered. These guys wouldn't sit still and wait for death. She was worried for nothing. Jiang Haotian, you can't say things like that. Feng Yuan is the hall master of our resource hall, Yin Hui is an elder of our enforcement hall, and Jin Yunchang is an inner elder. They are all reputable figures in our 9 Heavens Palace. Slandering them is a bigger crime than abusing your power to silence them. The great elder said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang smiled, of course, this disciple knows that. The great elder frowned, if that's the case, why didn't you defend yourselves before? It's simple. Just watch the show. We want to see what kind of face they will show. The result didn't disappoint us. It's very exciting. Qin Feiyang smiled. Presumptuous. Jiang Haotian, the evidence is conclusive. Even if you have a glib tongue, don't think about getting away with it today. Feng Yuan said angrily. Evidence? Qin Feiyang chuckled and shook his head. Feng Yuan, oh Feng Yuan, you really don't have a long memory. Isn't the end of Feng Wenhai and Jin Yunchang enough of a lesson for you? Jiang Haotian, you're wrong. It's not that he doesn't have a long memory, it's just that he's old and his memory is getting worse. Madman said indifferently. Preposterous, preposterous. Feng Yuan was furious. He looked at the elder. Elder, did you see that? This is their attitude. After all, I am the hall head of the resource hall. Indeed, he is too insensible. Our Nine Heavens Palace has always had a good reputation. How could we have such a disciple? The other leaders shook their heads as they looked at Qin Feiyang's group. The first elder saw that the situation was bad. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and said, "If you have something to say, say it. Don't mess around." "All right." Qin Feiyang nodded and turned to look at Feng Yuan and Jin Yunchang. He then looked at Yin Hui and said with a smile, "To be honest, I admire you. You sent us to prison as soon as you came out of seclusion. You're much better than Feng Wenhai." Yin Hui didn't say anything, but her eyes flickered. But there's a saying that goes, cleverness leads to the downfall of cleverness. If you don't get Gong Feng to look for me in the prison and ask about Guyong's whereabouts, I won't be able to break the deadlock you set up this time. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yin Hui was shocked. "Do you know? When I saw your faces before, I really wanted to laugh. Because in my eyes, you're as funny as clowns." Qin Feiyang said. "Clowns?" The madman was stunned. He thought about it carefully and nodded. "That's a good word. It suits them very well." Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang also laughed. But it was full of sarcasm. Feng Yuan and the other two's faces became uglier and uglier. The first elder raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "I'll warn you again. Don't talk nonsense." "Yes, yes, yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the other leaders. He smiled and said, "I believe that it's not only the first elder who can't wait, but all of you must also want to know what the truth is. So now, I'll have someone tell you the real truth." "The real truth?" Everyone looked at each other and then looked at Qin Feiyang again. Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Yuan and the other two and said with a smile, "You guys have to sit tight. Don't be scared stiff later." After speaking, Qin Feiyang still looked at Feng Yuan and the other two and said, "Say it." Who is he talking to?" Everyone was surprised and naturally looked at the madman, Hua Yi, and Mu Tianyang. Because the three of them were with Qin Feiyang. If it wasn't Qin Feiyang, then it must be one of the three. But in the end, the madman and the other two didn't speak. Just when everyone was about to lose their patience, Gong Zongfeng suddenly took a step forward. In an instant, Gong Zongfeng became the focus of everyone again. However, there was a trace of suspicion in everyone's eyes. Why did Gong Zongfeng stand out? Including Feng Yuan and the other two. No one thought that Qin Feiyang was talking to Gong Zongfeng just now. Gong Zongfeng glanced at everyone and said, "First elder, lords, I said before that Jiang Haotian is the murderer of my second brother, Feng Zijuan." Everyone nodded. Gong Zongfeng glanced at Feng Yuan and the other two and suddenly changed the topic. He looked at the first elder and said, "Actually, those words were taught to me by Feng Yuan, Yin Hui, and Jin Yunchang." "What?" The first elder suddenly stood up. The others were also dumbfounded. What was going on? "Gong Zongfeng, what are you trying to say?" Feng Yuan and the other two had an uneasy premonition in their hearts as they stared gloomily at Gong Zongfeng. But Gong Zongfeng turned a deaf ear to them and looked at the first elder and continued, "I reckon that the first elder shouldn't have understood. Then, I will say it again. Those words were taught by Feng Yuan and the others in order to frame Jiang Haotian and the other three. Gong Zongfeng." Feng Yuan and Yin Hui shouted in unison, their eyes gloomy to the extreme. Jin Yunchang, on the other hand, had a look of surprise. They actually turned against him? But why was that? Frame Jiang Haotian and the other three? What the hell is going on? The big shots also frowned and kept discussing. At the same time, the first elder and Shengwan Fenglan also looked at each other, and a glint flashed in their eyes at the same time. Silence. The first elder shouted. The great council hall immediately fell into dead silence. The first elder looked at Gong Zongfeng and said, "This old man is very interested to hear how they framed Jiang Haotian and the other three." First elder, "Don't listen to his nonsense." Feng Yuan hurriedly said. Gong Zongfeng, why is that? Could it be that Jiang Haotian and the others gave you some benefits? Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang were also burning with anxiety as they secretly reprimanded Gong Zongfeng. But Gong Zongfeng ignored them from beginning to end. The first elder looked at Feng Yuan and said with a smile, "Don't be anxious, let him speak first." Feng Yuan wanted to say something again. But at this moment, Gong Zongfeng spoke. First elder, the truth is that Qingli was actually killed by Jin Yunchang and Yu Zijie, and then framed senior brother Feng Zi and the other two. And the 4 disciples that appeared in the resource hall were deliberately arranged by Yin Hui, Yu Zijie, and Jin Yunchang in order to lure Jiang Haotian into the trap. As for Feng Zijuan being killed by Jiang Haotian, that's an even more groundless accusation. And all of this was meticulously planned by them in order to get rid of Jiang Haotian and the others. Gong Zongfeng said. What? Qingli was actually killed by Yu Zijie and Jin Yunchang? Wait. Why is Yu Zijie involved in this matter? The powerhouses were surprised. Because senior brother Feng Zi has always been suppressing Yu Zijie, which made Yu Zijie very unhappy. Especially the last time in the treasure pavilion, when he was bidding for the 4 symbols infinite divine pill, senior brother Feng Zi humiliated him in public, causing him to bear a grudge in his heart. So, he joined forces with Yin Hui and the others to get rid of senior brother Feng Zi. Gong Zongfeng said. Gong Zongfeng, have you said enough? What benefits did you receive from them to actually help them bite back at us? Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang shouted. I didn't receive any benefits from them. I just don't want to collude with you guys, and I don't want a good person like senior brother Jiang to be harmed by you guys, so I told the truth. Gong Zongfeng said indifferently. Yin Hui was infuriated. No wonder Qin Feiyang and the others weren't worried at all before. It turned out that they had already bribed Gong Zongfeng. The first elder said with a smile, "This matter is really getting more and more interesting." First elder, don't listen to his nonsense. He must be holding a grudge against us because we didn't give his mother a status, so he joined forces with Jiang Haotian and the others to take revenge on us. Feng Yuan hurriedly said. Yes. He has always been brooding about this matter. First elder, you have to be clear about this. The words of such a person are not worthy of trust at all. Jin Yunchang also said. Not worthy of trust? That's not right. Why didn't I see you guys say such things when you were slandering us earlier? Now that he has told the truth, you guys are saying that he is not worthy of trust. Isn't that too realistic? Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 of them mockingly. That's because we were blind before and didn't see his true colors clearly. Jin Yunchang roared. You really should dig out your eyes. Otherwise, why are you so blind and always provoking us? Qin Feiyang laughed. Jin Yunchang was so angry that he gritted his teeth. The first elder glanced at Qin Feiyang and Jin Yunchang and said angrily, "Quiet." Jin Yunchang became obedient at once. Qin Feiyang also shut his mouth tactfully. The first elder looked at Gong Zongfeng and said in a deep voice, "Your one-sided words can't be used as evidence. I know that no one will believe you if you go back on your words like this." Gong Zongfeng nodded. The first elder asked, "Then do you have evidence?" "I don't." Gong Zong Feng shook his head. Feng Yuan and the other two immediately heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that there was no evidence. Gong Zong Feng said again, but it doesn't mean that others don't have evidence. What? Feng Yuan and the other two were shocked. Their hearts that had just been relieved were suspended again. Who? The first elder asked. Me. A burst of laughter suddenly rang out in the void. Immediately after, a young man in purple appeared beside Gong Zong Feng out of thin air. You are? The first elder looked at the young man in purple suspiciously. The young man in purple bowed and said, First elder, my name is Mu Qing, an inner disciple. Mu Qing? The first elder frowned. Shengguan Fenglan said, First elder, I have seen him before. He seems to be Mu Tianyang's relative. The first elder stared blankly for a moment before he suddenly smiled and said, I remember now. I saw him during the test. Yes. He was with Mu Tianyang and a girl named Guosweki. Shengguan Fenglan said. The other giants also remembered. There was indeed such a person. Chapter 2140. Mu Qing. Feng Yuan frowned. Yin Hui said to herself, Father, do you know this person too? Yes. During the assessment, the first elder seemed to be very concerned about him. Feng Yuan transmitted his voice. Concerned? Yin Hui was surprised. I still remember that Jiang Haotian entered a state of invisibility and wanted to assassinate this person. But in the end, this person seemed to know his location and dodged in advance. That's what the first elder is concerned about. Feng Yuan said to himself. Invisibility? Yin Hui frowned. There was no doubt. Jiang Haotian entered the state of invisibility because he had mastered a divine art that could make him invisible. But this Mu Qing could actually see through the other party's invisibility. This was a little unbelievable. The first elder looked at Mu Qing and asked, Just now you said that you have evidence. Is that true? Yes. Mu Qing nodded. Where is the evidence? The first elder said. Mu Qing took out the image crystal and said with a smile, The evidence is here. In an instant, everyone's eyes were fixed on the image crystal in Mu Qing's hand. Jin Yunchang was shocked and transmitted his voice, Father-in-law, he wouldn't have secretly recorded something, right? Don't panic. Feng Yuan said to himself and stared at Mu Qing's image crystal with a gloomy expression. Yin Hui said to herself, Why don't we just destroy the image crystal? Don't be impulsive. Maybe this is a trap set by Jiang Haotian. Feng Yuan transmitted his voice. A trap? Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang were surprised. Yes. Maybe they don't have evidence at all. They are just pretending to lure us to take action. Because once we take action, it is equivalent to admitting that we framed them. Feng Yuan said to himself. That's true. Only a guilty conscience would destroy the image crystal. Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang muttered. But in their hearts, there was always a sense of anxiety and uneasiness. Mu Qing looked at Feng Yuan and the other two and asked suspiciously, Why didn't you have any reaction when you saw the image crystal? How do you want us to react? Feng Yuan sneered. Mu Qing said, There's evidence of you framing me. Logically speaking, shouldn't you destroy it when no one is paying attention? Destroy it? You must be joking. We are not afraid of crooked shadows. Feng Yuan sneered. He was certain that there was nothing inside the image crystal. This was a bait to lure them into making a move. Once they made a move, even if there was no evidence, it would be difficult for them to get away with it. Hearing Mu Qing's words, Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang's hearts calmed down. Did he really think that he could trick them with such a petty trick? Naive. Mu Qing looked at the three of them in astonishment and said, "Aren't you afraid that I'll make it public?" "Make it public?" Feng Yuan's face was filled with provocation. "Are you sure? Why don't I give you another chance? It's not too late to destroy it now." After Mu Qing finished speaking, she handed the image crystal to Feng Yuan. The sneer on Feng Yuan's face deepened. "Alas!" Mu Qing shook her head and sighed, saying, "You don't want the opportunity that's given to you. I really don't know what you're thinking." In that case, Mu Qing retreated to Mu Tianyang's side, looked at the chief elder and the other giants, and said with a smile, "Everyone, please enjoy." Buzz! The image crystal was immediately activated. In the void of the main hall, an image immediately unfolded. In the image, there were Feng Yuan, Yin Hui, Jin Yunchang, and Child Feng. Moreover, it was the time when Yin Hui told Feng Yuan about the overall plan. What? Feng Yuan and the other two were stunned as if they had been hit in the head. They didn't lie to them. There was really an image. Damn it! They should have destroyed the image crystal before. Although destroying the image crystal was a sign of guilt, there was no real evidence. The chief elder could only give them a warning at most. But it was different now. The image in front of them was irrefutable evidence. They had a chance, and the other party had given it to them, but they didn't cherish it? At this moment, the three of them were full of regret. But unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. It should be too late for them to destroy the image crystal now. Moreover, the chief elder and the others wouldn't give them the chance. "Father-in-law, what should we do?" Jin Yunchang looked at the image and couldn't help but tremble. "How would I know?" Feng Yuan said angrily. He didn't expect that Mu Qing would record their conversation. At this time, the meeting hall was dead silent. The chief elder, Shangguan Fenglan, and the other giants were all looking at the image in the void, their faces extremely gloomy. A moment later, the image finally ended. Mu Qing put away the image crystal, turned to look at Feng Yuan and the other two, and said, "Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. You didn't cherish it." Puff! As soon as these words came out, Feng Yuan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. This was extreme anger attacking the heart. Smack! The chief elder slammed his palm on the table, stood up, looked at Feng Yuan and the other two, and shouted, "What do you have to say now?" The three of them trembled and directly knelt on the ground. "What did I say just now? Sit tight and don't be scared stiff. Didn't it come true?" Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them mockingly. The three of them were thinking about how to escape this disaster, so how could they listen to these words? "Feng Yuan, Yin Hui, you've gone too far this time. Jiang Haotian and the others did have a grudge against you, but you know in your heart that you provoked them first. Yet, you all have been unrepentant this entire time. Now, you even came up with such a vicious scheme to frame them. You even lied to us and the chief elder. You've gone mad. Do you think people like you deserve to be the resource hall master and the disciplinary hall elder?" The giants were extremely angry. Deceiving them like this was treating them like idiots. Looking at the angry giants, Feng Yuan and the other two's faces were full of fear. Sigh. The chief elder sighed and said, "This old man didn't expect that the Nine-Heaven Palace was hiding such terrifying people like you." "I'm sorry, Chief Elder," Feng Yuan hurriedly apologized. Is an apology useful? When Feng Wenhai framed Jiang Haotian last time, this old man asked you if you had anything to do with it. How did you answer this old man back then? You swore that you didn't know about it and didn't participate in it. This old man believed you, but what about now? How can this old man still believe you after what you've done?" The chief elder said with a face full of disappointment. "Chief elder, this has nothing to do with Lord Father. He only knew about it afterward. And Jin Yunchang and I have nothing to do with this. Because this plan was thought of by Gongzi Feng. At most, we're accomplices. Yin Hui said. Yes, yes, yes. This was all Gongzi Feng's idea. Please forgive us, Chief Elder. Jin Yunchang hurriedly said. Not only are you unrepentant, but you're also pushing the blame. How stubborn. Even if this plan was thought of by Gongzi Feng, you still deserve to die. The Chief Elder shouted angrily. Yes, yes, yes. It's all our fault. Chief Elder, please forgive us and give us a chance to turn over a new leaf. The three of them trembled and hurriedly said. Shut up for this old man first. The Chief Elder snorted coldly and returned to his seat. He looked at Shengguan Fenglan and said, Send a message to Yu Zijia and tell him to come over immediately. Yes. Shengguan Fenglan nodded and took out the image crystal. Buzz. Not long after. A young man in white appeared. It was Yu Zijia. Greetings, Hall Master. Yu Zijia stood in a cultivation room and bowed respectfully to Shengguan Fenglan. Shengguan Fenglan said, Come to the conference hall immediately. Go to the conference hall? Yu Zijia was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, What's the matter? Just come when I tell you to. What nonsense are you talking about? Shengguan Fenglan shouted. Okay, I'll be right there. Yu Zijia hurriedly nodded, and then the phantom dissipated. Yu Zijia, this bastard, I will not let him off easily. Don't be polite with me later. If you have a grudge, take revenge. Frenzy transmitted his voice. Thinking of Yu Zijia's face at the St. Peak, he couldn't help but get angry. Don't worry. My fists have been thirsting for blood for a long time. Mu Tianyang secretly laughed. Next. No one spoke. Feng Yuan and the other two also kept kneeling on the ground, not daring to move. Because they all knew that the Chief Elder was angry. Once this old man was angry, the consequences were very serious. The conference hall once again fell into dead silence. Duh. Not long after. Accompanied by a burst of hurried footsteps, a young man in white ran into the conference hall. It was Yu Zijia. But when he saw Feng Yuan and the other two kneeling on the ground, his expression suddenly froze. What's the situation? Why are they kneeling on the ground? Coming back to his senses, Yu Zijia looked at Qin Feiyang and the others again and immediately fell into a daze. Why are these people standing? What happened? Logically speaking, the people kneeling on the ground should be Frenzy and Jiang Haotian, right? Yu Zijia. The Chief Elder shouted. Yu Zijia quivered and hurriedly bowed, Greetings to the Chief Elder, greetings to the lords. Answer me. Did you kill Chengli? The Chief Elder asked. Yu Zijia was shocked and glanced at Feng Yuan and the other two. Could it be that the matter had been exposed? But how was this possible? Speak. The Chief Elder shouted. Yu Zijia hurriedly said, Chief Elder, where did this come from? Weren't Frenzy and the others the ones who killed Chengli? You really don't want to tell the truth. The Chief Elder's face was full of anger. As the second person on the heaven roll and the direct disciple of the second elder, you actually colluded with Feng Yuan and the others to frame others. You are really something. Plop. Yu Zijia quivered and directly knelt on the ground. He was so frightened that he was paralyzed. Feng Yuan and the others have already confessed to the stupid things you have done. Tell me, how should I punish you? The Chief Elder said coldly. Confess? Yu Zijia was taken aback and immediately roared in his heart. Damn it. Why did these three bastards confess? Chapter 2141. If it was just a small mistake, he wouldn't care at all. Because as the disciple of the second elder, he had a lot of glory and the upper echelons of 9 Heaven Palace wouldn't do anything to him. But this time, he killed an elder. Although he was only an outer elder, he was still an elder. The most important thing was, the person he framed was the person the great elder cared about the most. Perhaps even his master would be enraged if he heard of this. The great elder's face was gloomy as he shouted, "Uzijia, answer this old man's question." Uzijia's body trembled as he hurriedly said, "Great elder, this disciple was bewitched by them. This disciple is indeed wrong, this disciple will definitely change." Bewitched? The madman laughed in anger. He was clearly the mastermind, yet he was still complaining. He took a step forward and kicked Uzijia to the ground, causing his head to bleed. "Madman, you bastard," Uzijia immediately cursed, but when he got up and saw the expression on the madman's face, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. The cursing also stopped abruptly. "You're cursing. If you have the guts, then curse me out." The madman licked his lips, his expression was cold, and his eyes were bloodthirsty. Uzijia's pupils constricted, and he couldn't help but feel fear in his heart. The madman laughed and grabbed Uzijia, pressing him to the ground and rubbing him crazily. Seeing this situation, the big shots couldn't help frowning. After all, he was the second elder's disciple, wasn't this a bit too much? But seeing the great elder indifferent, they didn't dare to stop him. After a while, Uzijia's face that was constantly rubbing against the ground was unrecognizable, and blood flowed all over the ground. Pain. A heart-wrenching pain. But compared to pain, it was more humiliation. Torturing him like this in front of so many people was a formless humiliation. But now, he didn't dare to fight back or resist. Because he had made a mistake, the great elder didn't say anything, which was equivalent to tacitly agreeing with the madman's actions. And in front of the madman, he didn't have the strength to fight back or resist. The madman suddenly stopped, got up and kicked. Uzijia immediately rolled like a ball, lying on the ground face up. The skin on his face was completely worn out, and he no longer looked human. The madman sneered, "Do you still remember what I said on the Saint Mountain?" Uzijia's body and mind tightened, and the panic in his heart grew stronger. Of course, he remembered that madman had silently said, "You're dead." But at that time, he didn't care at all. He thought that the lunatic would definitely die this time. However, he didn't expect the plot to turn around so quickly. How is it? Now it has come true. A piece of trash like you dares to scheme against me? The madman looked down at Uzijia with disdain. Trash? When Uzijia heard this, he clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were burning with rage. Still not convinced? The madman stomped on Uzijia's stomach, shattering his chi-si. Roar! Uzijia immediately let out a miserable howl like a pig being slaughtered. An old man couldn't bear it and said with a frown, "Madman, that should be enough." Enough? The madman raised his eyebrows as he looked at the old man and cursed, "Are you fucking joking?" "You," the old man's eyes widened. "What's wrong with me? When I was wrong just now, all of you were shouting at me and even wanted to kill me. But when it's Uzijia, why are all of you acting like a mute? And now you're scolding me? What's wrong? Do you think I'm easy to bully?" The madman said with a sneer. When the old man heard this, he immediately lowered his head in shame. "Actually, I know that all of you old fools have long found me an eyesore. Unfortunately, my life is very tough, I just can't die." The madman had a mocking expression. The first elder coughed dryly, "Madman, don't go too far. You won't let others speak the truth. Look at these people, which one of them isn't like the old man? They don't do anything usually, but when something happens, they run out. The key is that I haven't seen them say a single meaningful word. What's the point of living for such people? It's better to dig a hole early, lie in it, and then cover it with soil to avoid being hated. The madman pursed his lips. When Qin Feiyang and the other two heard this, their faces immediately turned red. This was really insulting. How could these old fellows have any face left? The atmosphere at the scene was quite awkward. The big shots were both angry and ashamed. Cough cough. The first elder coughed dryly and said, "Let's get to the point. Everyone, tell us, how should we deal with them?" The madman said indifferently, "Before you speak, you have to think carefully, lest you go down in history in infamy." Go down in history in infamy? Senior brother madman, why do you say that? Qin Feiyang was curious. Think about it yourself. Previously, when we were wronged, they all said righteously that if we weren't killed, it wouldn't be enough to appease the anger of the people. Now, if trash like Feng Yuan says that he's lenient because of old ties, wouldn't he be cursed in the future? The madman joked. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said with a smile, "It does make sense." Nonsense. I'm such a smart person, how can my words not make sense? The madman touched his chin narcissistically, but when he looked at the big shots, his eyes were full of playfulness. The big shots were about to go crazy with anger. This madman was obviously mocking them. Seeing that the situation was set and couldn't be reversed, Yin Hui couldn't help but sigh secretly. She looked at the first elder and pleaded, "First elder, this matter really has nothing to do with my father. I am willing to bear it alone. Please look at my father's conscientious work in the Nine Heavens Palace all these years and give him a way out." Feng Yuan looked at Yin Hui, tears flowing down his old face. "Father, you are not in the wrong. You were implicated by us. I'm sorry to have implicated you." Yin Hui blamed herself. "No. First elder, I am the mastermind of this matter. Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang were instigated by me. I am willing to bear all the consequences." Feng Yuan gritted his teeth and looked at the first elder. Yin Hui's expression changed and said secretly, "Father, what are you doing?" Jin Yunchang was also quite surprised. He originally guessed that Feng Yuan might let him take the blame. Because, although he was Feng Yuan's son-in-law, whether it was background or strength, he couldn't compare to Yin Hui. After all, Yin Hui still had a master. Her master was an existence that even the big shots had to be respectful to. However, he never thought that Feng Yuan would take the blame himself. "I know what I am doing. Although this will ruin my reputation, with my status in the Nine Heavens Palace and my contributions to the Nine Heavens Palace over the years, the first elder will definitely not kill me. But you are different. Once you bear this responsibility, you will have to pay the price of beheading. My Feng family has already become like this. No one can be sacrificed." Feng Yuan transmitted his voice. His tone was full of bitterness and helplessness. A mere Jiang Haotian had caused their Feng family to become like this? Was this fate? The first elder looked at the three, his eyes flickering. Finally, he looked at Feng Yuan and sighed, "This old man can understand your feelings. But the evidence that Mu Qing took out is enough to prove that you only knew about it after the fact. So this responsibility has to be shouldered by Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang." After the first elder finished speaking, he looked at Yu Zijia and said, "You too. Although you are the second elder's disciple, you have to be punished for your mistakes." Yu Zijia's eyes trembled. Then, the first elder looked at the big shots and said, "This is not the first time the Feng family has framed Jiang Haotian. If this matter is not handled properly, it will definitely arouse public anger. Everyone, please make a decision." The big shots looked at each other, unable to make up their minds for a moment. One of the middle-aged men said, "First elder, since the victims are Jiang Haotian and the other three, why don't we let them make the decision?" "Yes, yes, yes. Whether it's for public or private reasons, it's best to let them make the decision." The others agreed. They didn't want to incur Feng Yuan's hatred. Because from the first elder's attitude, he didn't have any intention of punishing Feng Yuan. Of course. The person they were most afraid of was Yin Hui's master, Elder Yun. This old man wasn't someone they could offend. Therefore, it was better not to get involved in this matter. Mu Tianyang glanced at the big shots and secretly sneered, "What a bunch of old foxes. I've long expected it." As long as Feng Yuan is still the hall master of the resource hall, they won't dare to offend him. Qin Feiyang secretly said. As for the first elder. In fact, just like when he punished Feng Wenhai last time, he didn't want to be the bad guy, so he let the big shots make the decision. Jiang Haotian, Frenzy, Hua Yi, Mu Tianyang, since the big shots suggested that you guys make the decision, then you guys should think about it carefully. The first elder laughed. Old fox, the four of them couldn't help but curse in their hearts. He actually handed it over to them. For a time, the four of them once again became the focus of the audience. This matter, cough, cough. Brother Jiang should make the decision. Mu Tianyang laughed. Yes, yes, yes. Brother Jiang has the deepest grudge with the Feng family, so it's very appropriate to let Brother Jiang make the decision. Hua Yi also laughed. Jiang Haotian, you have a heavy responsibility. Frenzy patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder and laughed. Are you guys interested? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. The three of them laughed but didn't say anything. Qin Feiyang was helpless. He glanced at Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang before looking at Yu Zijia. Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang didn't care. After all, they had already offended the Feng family. But this Yu Zijia was a very troublesome problem. One has to know that behind Yu Zijia was the second elder, and his talent was also very outstanding. If he died because of him, the second elder would most likely come to find trouble with him. If he understood the second elder, he might be able to think of a countermeasure. But currently, he knew nothing about the second elder. Hurry up, everyone is waiting. Frenzy urged. Qin Feiyang secretly said angrily, don't you want to deal with Yu Zijia? Now that such a good opportunity has presented itself, why don't you make a move? I've already beaten him up just now, and I've already vented my anger. Frenzy secretly laughed. Chapter 2142. Qin Feiyang stared at Madman and took a deep breath. Since when did he become so wishy-washy? He wasn't like this in the past. Could it be that the sharpness from back then had been wiped out? In fact, sharpness was something that everyone had when they were young. But as they continued to grow, as time passed, they would slowly change and no longer be as impulsive and reckless as before. In short, after a person matured, before doing anything, they would consider all aspects. Jiang Haotian, how about we talk again? Suddenly, an old voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and looked at Feng Yuan. Because the owner of the voice was Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan transmitted his voice, same as last time, 4 billion soul stones, 4 peak-level divine arts. Qin Feiyang was stunned, this again? Jiang Haotian, how about we talk? Suddenly, another voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang looked at Yu Zijia in surprise. Yu Zijia secretly said, I will give you 1 billion soul stones, let me go, and I promise that I will treat you like a brother in the future. Brother? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Although you have Madman's protection now, you have to know that Madman can go to the Divine Palace at any time. When Madman goes to the Divine Palace, then you will have no support in 9 Heavens Palace. And now, as long as we become friends, then I can be your backer in the future. At that time, you can still run rampant in 9 Heavens Palace. Yu Zijia transmitted his voice. Friend? backer? Qin Feiyang secretly laughed and said, but before, you wanted to kill me. This is a misunderstanding. You should also know that my real target is not you. Yu Zijie secretly said. I know your target is madman, but I almost died under your tricks, that is an indisputable fact. Do you think we can be friends like this? Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Of course. As long as you're willing. Yu Zijie said. Do you know? If it was me who had just entered Nine Heavens Palace, I would have definitely agreed. Because at that time, I lacked soul stones. But now, I don't lack anything. Qin Feiyang said to Yu Zijie indifferently. Then, he said to Feng Yuan through telepathy, last time, I already showed mercy, but in return, you guys went from bad to worse. So, this kind of thing won't happen again. Following closely. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the Great Elder. He bowed and said, Great Elder, this disciple has made his decision. Go ahead. The Grand Elder said. Jiang Haotian, you better think carefully, Yu Zijie and Feng Yuan shouted at Qin Feiyang at almost the same time. Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear to the Great Elder's words, as all the lords have said, this matter has already spread to the entire Northern Territory. If we do not punish them severely, it will damage the reputation of our Nine Heavens Palace. Therefore, this disciple believes that these people should be killed without mercy. Kill without mercy. Yu Zijie, Yin Hui, and Jin Yunchang's eyes trembled. Although they were already mentally prepared, they still couldn't help but feel afraid when they heard this. Well said. The reputation of Nine Heavens Palace needs to be protected by all of us. For the sake of this reputation, Shangguan Fenglan, do it. The Great Elder shouted. Shangguan Fenglan suddenly stood up. Yu Zijie immediately panicked. He kowtowed while crying, Great Elder, I dare not do it again. Please, spare me this time. I dare not do it again. Jin Yunchang also begged repeatedly. Only Yin Hui remained silent. She stared at Qin Feiyang with eyes full of hatred. Jin Yunchang, you deserve to die the most. Last time, you used the cave-dwelling incident to deliberately make things difficult for Jiang Haotian and the others. This palace lord was already merciful by not expelling you from Nine Heavens Palace, but you don't repent. When Shangguan Fenglan said this, killing intent surged in her eyes. With a wave of her hand, a strand of divine power streaked across the sky like lightning and entered Jin Yunchang's forehead under his despairing gaze. Ah! Accompanied by a shrill scream, Jin Yunchang fell to the ground on the spot. There was a bloody hole between his eyebrows and blood flowed out. Looking at this scene, Yu Zijie became more and more panicked. Yin Hui, as an elder of the Law Enforcement Hall, you knowingly broke the law. Not only did you damage the reputation of Nine Heavens Palace, but you also deceived us and the Great Elder. With 2 crimes on your body, you deserve to die. Shangguan Fenglan said coldly. After speaking, a strand of divine power appeared again. Stop. However, at this moment, an old voice sounded. Following closely, a black-clothed old man strode into the meeting hall. Elder Yun. Master. When Feng Yuan and Yin Hui saw the old man, their eyes burned with hope. The various leaders were also moved by this. However, Qin Feiyang and the others frowned. Shangguan Fenglan frowned and looked at Elder Yun. Elder Yun, this matter, the black-clothed old man waved his hand and stopped Shangguan Fenglan. He then looked at the Great Elder and bowed. Greetings, Great Elder. The Great Elder nodded. In fact, I have been here for a long time, but I didn't show up, so this old man knows everything that happened before. And I am not here to plead for Yin Hui. Elder Yun said. Then why are you here? The Great Elder was suspicious. Elder Yun said, I killed her with my own hands. What? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. Killed Yin Hui with his own hands? Yin Hui was also completely dumbfounded. She thought that Elder Yun was here to help her, but she didn't expect that he was here to kill her. Elder Yun, she is your disciple. Feng Yuan also had a look of disbelief. It is because she is my disciple that I have to end her life with my own hands. Elder Yun's eyes were cold, looking at Yin Hui with a face of disappointment. In the past, I accepted you as a disciple because I saw that you were ambitious and kind-hearted, but I didn't expect that you would become like this today. I'm sorry. Yin Hui lowered her head. Elder Yun stepped forward, touched Yin Hui's head, and sighed. In fact, I don't want to kill you, but since you made a mistake, you should bear the consequences. Master, please do it. Yin Hui slowly closed her eyes. Sigh. Elder Yun let out a long sigh, the divine power in his palm moved, and a stream of blood suddenly gushed out from the top of Yin Hui's head. Elder Yun said, "Don't worry, this old man will take good care of Zihan for you." "Thank you, Master." Yin Hui smiled gratefully. Elder Yun's arm shook, and a crisp sound suddenly came from Yin Hui's head. Following that, Yin Hui slowly fell to the ground, and her life fluctuations quickly dissipated. Sure enough, he is a real old man. Qin Feiyang sighed. Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi also nodded. Phew. Elder Yun exhaled, retracted his arm, and looked at the Great Elder. Great Elder, I have a presumptuous request. Speak. The Great Elder said. Elder Yun said, I want to bury her with my own hands. Okay. After all, she is your disciple. The Great Elder nodded. Thank you, Great Elder. Elder Yun bowed, then carried Yin Hui's body, turned around, and strode out. Throughout the whole process, he ignored Qin Feiyang and the others, as if he didn't see them. After Elder Yun left, Feng Yuan collapsed on the ground powerlessly, his eyes lifeless, and his whole person seemed to have aged dozens of years. First, Feng Wenhai was expelled from the Nine Heavens Palace, then Feng Zijuan was killed, and then Jin Fatso died because of him. Now, Yin Hui and Jin Yunchang died one after another. In just a few months, his son, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, grandson, and grandson had met with misfortune one after another. The current Feng family could be considered to have declined in the true sense. This blow to him was too great. Looking at Yu Zijia again. Jin Yunchang and Yin Hui died one after another, and at this moment, his heart was completely in despair. Regret and hatred intertwined. Shangguan Fenglan lowered her head to look at Yu Zijia and sighed, You originally had a great future, but unfortunately, it was all buried in your own hands. I refuse to accept this. Why can you just let it go when a lunatic makes a mistake? And when I make a mistake, you want to kill me? Yu Zijia suddenly roared. Lunatic did make a lot of mistakes in the past, but he has never killed an elder-level figure. Shangguan Fenglan said. Cheng Li is just an outer sect elder, and I am second on the heaven leaderboard, the #1 alchemist. Am I not as valuable as him? You want me to die with him? Why? Yu Zijia had already gone crazy. Because if it was any other time, he would never dare to say such words. Although outer sect elders and inner sect elders didn't have high status in the Nine Heavens Palace, they were still elder-level figures. Behind people's backs, you could ignore them, but in front of others, you had to show respect. You really don't have the slightest bit of regret. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head in disappointment, and a strand of divine power flew out, heading straight for Yu Zijia's forehead. Jiang Haotian, you don't want me to live, so I won't let you have it easy. I'll kill you. But at the same time, Yu Zijia roared and charged at Qin Feiyang. Just you? Madman seemed to have expected that Yu Zijia would act out of desperation. He took a step in front of Qin Feiyang and sent him flying with a kick. Bang! Wuxia screamed as he flew out and smashed into a stone pillar. Madman, you bastard! Wuxia's hair stood up in anger as he ran towards Madman in a sorry state. Pa! But at this moment, the crisp sound of a slap was heard. A white figure appeared in front of Wuxia out of thin air and raised his hand to slap Wuxia's face. Qin Feiyang was surprised. It was the back of a young man. His figure was quite thin, and his clothes were whiter than snow. His thick black hair draped over his shoulders, and his entire person exuded an ethereal and unfathomable aura. Not good. Madman muttered. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at him. Madman secretly said, he is the second elder of our Nine Heavens Palace. The second elder is so young? Mu Tianyang was surprised. This is normal. At our level, as long as we are willing, we can always maintain our youthful state. Madman said. Master. Wuxia was stunned for a moment, then immediately knelt on the ground and shouted, Master, I don't want to die, save me. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.